cafe, shop, cinema and a large car park. It's impressive, but its name, the German Museum, feels a little neutral to me. We simply want to show the facts of division and the effects of division, Robert tells me. I detect he's being diplomatic. The villagers on the eastern side, farmers and craftsmen, lived in what he calls the grey zone, neither supporting nor opposing the regime. The village is still divided, administratively at least, with different car number plates and different postcodes. When the federal president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, recently visited, he was accompanied by the state premiers of both Bavaria and Thuringia. And when his foot crossed the brook, he was formally handed over by one police force to the other. History may have moved on, the border hasn't.
John Kampfner with our last story for this week. I'm Pascal Harter, the producer was Polly Hope, and we'll be back with fresh stories next weekend. So join us again then, here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme from our own correspondent. I'm Saroja Coelho. Have a great day.
Well, good Monday morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live in downtown Winnipeg. It's misty out in the city. It's -5 and a little greasy if you're driving. So take it easy, and thanks for joining us. Your morning show is on until 8:37 a.m., and we are going to say good morning to the team, including Mr. Corey Funk, who directs the show, and we'll be covering the commute. Good morning to Darren Marash, who is our YouTube producer, if you're watching the stream there. And good morning to Mr. Abby Adiemi, who's our senior tech behind the board. Abby will be on the air with the weather through the morning. For Winnipeg today, cloudy, a high of 1 degree is what we're expecting. That fog this morning, some fog patches that could be around. Brandon's cloudy, a high of 4 degrees, really windy for you today, gusty winds. And in Taunton, some snow beginning near noon and a high of 0. Let's get right to our news headlines. It's 3 minutes to 6. Here's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, as those temperatures drop, Winnipeg outreach groups and shelters are in desperate need of warm clothing. Morgan's Warriors does outreach in downtown Winnipeg. The co-founder there, Melissa Robinson, says they could use anything like winter coats, hoodies, toques, mitts, and wool socks. All can be dropped off at Thunderbird House. She says they recently found a young woman who was hypothermic and couldn't even move to find a shelter. Well, it is that time. Let's get the party started. Grey Cup week in Winnipeg, and even though the Bombers aren't in it, the football fans are ready to party. The province estimates hosting the Grey Cup will result in a boost of $90 million in economic activities for the province. We'll hear more about that coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
And now if you're watching the stream, you'll know why I'm wearing my Bomber jersey today. Yes, the Bombers aren't in it. It's the Alouettes and the Rough Riders. But you'll notice for Grey Cup week, if you've never been to a Grey Cup, then what you're going to see are license plates from all over the place, and also, of course, team colors and pride, people wearing their jerseys around town. So we'll have lots coming up. We'll also have more on that story of the arrival of the Grey Cup, the team's getting here later today. In addition, on the show today, we're going to talk a lot about bikes. What is going on with getting bikes back? The Winnipeg Police's bust of a recent suspected bicycle chop shop in that Point Douglas encampment in Winnipeg led to 2 arrests back in August. But what has happened since, and what other areas are they concerned about? So we're going to talk to a police inspector this morning. Coming up a little bit later, we'll hear from her. Right now, though, let's turn our attention to World Report.
On Cue. Alex Cuba is a Grammy Award-winning artist known for his joyful, happy music. But on his new album, Alex is tapping into the sorrow and pain of his past. Alex will be here to tell you about the new record, finding beauty in that pain, and the gratitude he feels for his ancestors. Cue
with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The U.S. government shutdown could be coming to an end. A shift in the Democratic Party has opened the door. Senators voted late last night to move ahead with a plan that would end the shutdown in a matter of days. A bloc of Democrats have broken ranks and appear ready to bend on health care. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. Willie, what can you tell us about these latest developments?
So negotiations between Senate Republicans and a handful of Democrats really ramped up over the weekend, and the two sides reached a breakthrough late yesterday. The Democrats aren't getting what they wanted, but Senate Majority Leader John Thune pledged to hold a vote on American Care Act subsidies by mid-December. The legislation also promises to reverse federal layoffs made during the shutdown, a key Democratic sticking point in recent days, and it will fund the federal SNAP program, or food stamps, through the fiscal year, and the government through January 30th. These changes have cleaved Senate Democrats in two, with leadership still holding firm and voting against the procedural motion. Senator Jeanne Shaheen is one of the 8 Democrats who signed off. She says it's the best deal that they were going to get.
I understand that not all of my Democratic colleagues are satisfied with this agreement, but waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome. It would only mean more harm for families in New Hampshire and all across the country.
So what is next?
So this was the first of several steps before the government can reopen. The legislation will now wind its way through Congress, the Senate will have to vote on it, and then the House of Representatives. And if passed, President Donald Trump will then have to sign off. It is already by far the longest shutdown in U.S. history, and it could be days before it officially ends. Thousands of federal workers have been furloughed. Many have been forced to work without pay over the last nearly 6 weeks. Now, a part of this deal would provide back pay for those workers, but it's unclear how long it will take for those funds to roll out.
All right, thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. There is trouble at Britain's public broadcaster on allegations of bias. A leaked internal review has accused the BBC of distorting a clip of U.S. President Donald Trump. In response last night, Tim Davie, the head of the BBC, and the head of its news department both quit. Chris Brown has more from London.
Thank you all.
Just before the last U.S. presidential election, the BBC program Panorama ran this clip of Donald Trump speaking to supporters before the storming of the Capitol in 2021.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight.
Only Trump didn't actually say those words in that way. They were from different parts of the same speech. Last week, the Telegraph newspaper leaked an internal BBC review that concluded the edit distorted what Trump said. It added there were other far-reaching problems of bias in the network's news coverage. It questioned the way the BBC's Arabic service covered the Gaza war and how the corporation dealt with transgender issues. In his resignation statement, Director General Tim Davie said he was taking responsibility for the mistakes. Roger Mosey is a former head of BBC News.
But the BBC was slow to respond to the latest allegations, and I think they were flat-footed.
The BBC's supporters accuse Britain's political right of being on a witch hunt against the corporation, and in her resignation statement, BBC head of news Deborah Turness also pushed back against the criticisms, saying while mistakes were made, the accusation that the broadcaster is institutionally biased is wrong. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is launching his Buy Canadian policy later today in New Brunswick. It's designed to make sure federal spending supports Canadian jobs and industries first. The policy applies to government contractors working on major defense and construction projects, and it starts by focusing on Canadian steel and softwood lumber. In the northeastern Philippines, a family saved the animals they could. They're all now stranded on the roof of their home. Cell phone video shows they're not alone after Typhoon Feng Wang made landfall yesterday. Several families are waiting on their rooftops for rescue, many of them with babies and small children. At least 4 people are dead. More than 1 million people have been displaced. Feng Wang is expected to weaken as it heads over the South China Sea towards Taiwan. There are some grim environmental realities to confront this week at the COP30 summit. The UN's annual climate summit opens today, and it comes as scientists say the Earth is warming, and it has outpaced efforts to reduce fossil fuel pollution. CBC's international climate correspondent Susan Ormiston is in Belém, Brazil for the summit. And Susan, there have been 30 years of these climate conferences. How is this one different?
Well, it's in the Amazon, so it's not a glittering metropolis like Dubai 2 years ago. And the political climate has really worsened over the last year, not to mention the changing climate. Delegates are sleeping here on cruise ships. Brazil's president is overnighting on a luxury boat in the river as well. And an indigenous boat arrived late Sunday with dozens of leaders. They traveled 25 days on rivers from a glacier in the Andes to here in the Amazon, and their main goal is demanding a greater say in how their territories are managed. Here's a spokesperson.
The most important thing is the indigenous young people are in the front lines, protecting the rivers, protecting the forests, protecting the jungle. So for me, this is the hope. This is the time for the indigenous youth.
A report last week said in the 1/3 of the Amazon rainforest occupied by indigenous communities, about 17% of those spaces are facing threats from oil and gas drilling, mining, and logging concessions.
So what is on the agenda for COP30?
In summary, heat, money, and motivation. I mean, 10 years after Paris, the world has missed its goal to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So how will countries dial up commitments to turn down the heat? Also money. Last year, countries agreed to pay $300 billion a year to countries at the worst end of climate damages, but only a fraction of that has come in. And motivation. The U.S., it's not here as an official delegation. And with the president of the U.S. calling climate change a hoax, how are countries going to work together to solve the big challenges, including making good on a promise 2 years ago to transition away from oil and gas when oil production here in Brazil and in Canada has reached record highs?
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Susan Ormiston reporting from Belém, Brazil. Brazilian security officers raided parts of Rio de Janeiro just weeks before this COP30 summit. 117 people were killed. When prosecutors justified the raid, they put forward the names of 69 suspects. The full police report on that operation has now been shared with Brazil's Supreme Court. It was reviewed by Reuters news agency, and it shows none of those 69 suspects were among those killed by police. Neither were any senior leaders of the Commando Vermelho gang, the target of the raid. A new study suggests young people in some of the world's wealthiest nations are becoming less open to having women in leadership. The study of G7 countries hints at a reversal in views when it comes to gender equality. But one country appears to be bucking that trend: Italy. Megan Williams has more from Rome.
Younger people are showing less progressive views than their parents and even grandparents when it comes to women in leadership, at least in Canada, the US, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. Michelle Harris heads the Variant Group, which has carried out the research for the Reykjavik Index for Leadership since 2018. It measures how women and men are viewed as leaders across 23 economic sectors. She says the 18 to 34 age group is sharply divided, with some highly progressive pockets, young men in particular nostalgic for more traditional roles. She says growing anxiety about the economy and the specter of global conflict is also shaping attitudes, especially among young men.
Some of that gets wrapped up in feelings of things being done that constrained their roles as men.
Feelings made worse by extremist influencers.
Online targeting of young men from bad actors.
Italy, though, stands apart, the only G7 country where younger people are more open than older generations to female leaders. Harrison says that may reflect the impact of Italy's first female prime minister, or simply a country catching up, with overall acceptance of female leaders still among the lowest in the G7.
Italy was not so much part of that second wave of feminism.
68% of young Canadians support female leadership, and 75% of those over age 55, putting Canada at the top of the G7. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Manitoba and hello, Winnipeg. Welcome to Grey Cup Week in our city of Winnipeg. It's going to be busy. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. And this is CBC, and this hour on the show, we're going to talk about the arrival of the Grey Cup. I'm wearing my jersey to rep the Bombers today. We are not in it. The Alouettes and the Saskatchewan Roughriders are. Those teams will arrive later today, but the Grey Cup is already here. On a misty morning, we'll find out what that was like as it arrived. In addition, this hour on the show, the Canadian Health Coalition says the federal budget that came out last week has cuts to Health Canada, and that could make it harder for people to get care that they need. So we're going to walk through those concerns. And then coming up this hour as well, the UN Climate Conference COP30, as you may have heard on World Report, begins today in Brazil. We're going to hear more about the immediate area around there. It's on the edge of the Amazon rainforest. We have a Canadian environmental expert on about the global sentiment on climate change and also specifically where that is happening today, the discussions for COP. All right, let's get to Heather Wells. She's in our news center and she's here with other headlines from our province. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg defense lawyer is struggling to review dozens of historical cases involving 4 disgraced Winnipeg police officers. Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty on Friday to a number of charges and faces a sentence behind bars. Last month, the Manitoba Prosecution Service asked several defense lawyers to review old files involving Bostock and the 3 other officers still facing charges. One lawyer says it is a gargantuan task. We'll hear more. And a UK woman is looking for compensation after a Manitoba cemetery lost her father's remains. Those stories coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Heather, how's the weekend?
Beautiful.
Good. Yeah, me as well. Really, really nice. And I find that I still, though, haven't raked. I know it's November, but I have trees that still are hanging on to their leaves. Like, it's just wild.
Isn't that great? I mean, it means that we've had a nice, mild fall.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, I've talked to people who say you really don't even need to rake because it's good for your grass.
Except I have turf.
There you go.
I have turf in the back for the dogs, so we need to rake that part. I'm waiting. I almost shook the tree this morning, like my little dogwood bushes. I almost shook them out to get the leaves off. And then I'm like, I'm going to be late for work.
I can imagine you in the middle of the night shaking a tree.
And then the neighbors are going to be like, what is that person doing? Anyway, all right, let's get into the actual weather. Heather's back, of course, with her next full cast at 6:30. Abby Adiemi, good morning. How was your weekend?
I had a restful one and lots of food.
Good. I also had a restful one and lots of food. I have to say, I was at a restaurant in Osborne Village over the weekend. It was packed, and it was just really nice. I know that when it gets a little chillier, one thing people do is go out and eat. And it was just nice to see sort of that vibe returning to that part of Winnipeg. I really liked it. So
yes, people still catching that last, feel of fall before they get to stay indoors.
Yeah, before we're wearing our toques.
Yeah, true.
What do we got today?
Yes, we're waking up to flurries and some fog patches in the southern part of the province today, though we'll see a mix of cloudy conditions with that as we get into the morning. It's going to feel chilly to start the week before we see temperatures get slightly above the freezing mark in a lot of regions. Winnipeg right now, we are around -6 with misty conditions. That should clear, and then we'll see a mainly cloudy day, turning breezy at some point from the south. We warm up to around +1 later today, and then by the evening period we'll dip back to around 0. Similar conditions we're seeing across board from the Parkland to the Westman, the Interlake region. We're looking at the morning temperatures hovering between -10 and -5 this morning. Up north, we're seeing temperatures around -5 and -2. But Winnipeg now, we're looking at -6, misty at the Forks, and we warm up to about 1 today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Into the commute we go with Corey Funk. Hi, you.
Hello. Yeah, we're starting to see some of those slightly less than ideal conditions on the highways now that things are starting to get a little bit colder. I actually see a snowplow just south of Selkirk on Highway 4 there. So just heads up.
We're so prairie.
I know.
I see a snowplow.
There's a snowplow, everyone. Go check it out. But also just some of those sidewalks. I was actually walking with my little baby girl in on a backpack this weekend. I almost slipped on some ice. Yes. So it's starting to get slippery out there.
It's greasy. Actually, over the bridges, even if you're driving, it's greasy this morning too. Yeah.
So heads up there. Wear your grippy shoes. Other than that, though, haven't heard of any major issues. But if you see something, give me a call. 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, it is Grey Cup week. Winnipeg hosting, not in the game, but it's certainly involved in all of the action this week. So there's going to be CFL awards next door at U of W. They're already setting up sort of a big zone where you can go and try football things. There's music. There's all kinds of things. But the first thing to happen is the Cup's arrival. So that was over the weekend. The festival kicks off today in the city. All week, fans will be descending on Winnipeg to party ahead of the big game at Princess Auto Stadium Sunday. I know the airport's already got the big banner up welcoming fans to the city. You've probably already seen some out-of-town license plates, people arriving early, maybe taking the week off, and CFL jerseys around town, because that's the tradition. You support your team, even if your team's not in the game, and you see all the jerseys around. Who is in the game? Well, the Montreal Alouettes facing the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The festivities, as I mentioned, though, do officially begin with the arrival ceremony of the Grey Cup. This started yesterday at the Forks. It flew in by helicopter, as you can hear. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod caught up with fans watching this Canadian Armed Forces member rappel from the helicopter with the Grey Cup in a camo pack.
Daniel Graham.
Cheryl Graham.
I'm excited to watch a good football game. And even though it's maybe cooler, it'll be still a good time.
How do you reconcile with the Riders playing in the Grey Cup?
You know what? We've been to a number of Grey Cups. Though we have a rivalry with the Riders, that gets pretty much shelved during Grey Cup week. Everybody generally will get along, and it'll be a good time.
What do you hope people who are coming here from out of province will maybe take away from being here in Winnipeg?
I just think the social aspect of it, the friendliness, like it is true, Winnipeg, Manitoba is friendly Manitoba. And, everybody will welcome everybody coming into town.
Is there a part you're most looking forward to besides the game?
Seeing other people that are from Calgary that are cheer for my team. And we usually have a few conversations about that because I'm a rarity here in Winnipeg. But just basically meeting up with some people. We haven't been to Grey Cup since 2019, so we'll probably see some people that we've known from the past.
Brad Orvis.
Kristen Orvis.
Do you guys look like pretty big football fans?
We are, yeah.
How excited are you for Grey Cup week?
It's pretty exciting. It kind of sucks that we have to work a little bit, but we're going to try and take in a couple of things for sure on Saturday. We're going to take in the stuff on Saturday for sure.
I was going to ask you, even though the Bombers aren't in, it sounds like you're still going to have a good time this week.
Oh yeah, it's a great party. Yes, it would have been nice to have the Bombers in it, but it's a great celebration of the league. And
have you been a football fan? What's your...
Oh, right from when I was little. And I've been a season ticket holder since 2005. So.
You guys going to the game?
We sure are.
So even though the Bombers aren't in it, you're still keeping the tickets and going to the game?
Of course.
What are you looking forward to about the big game?
Oh, it's just a big celebration. It's a big party. I mean, all the festivities, just seeing everybody come in from across Canada, and it's a good time.
What's it mean to you as a Winnipegger to have this event hosted here this year? It's been a while.
It has been a while. It's been 10 years. I volunteered at the last one. It's just great. It's great for the city. It's great for the province.
So that was tape. So you probably, if you're listening on the radio, that was video rather, didn't quite understand who was cheering for who. I can tell you a lot of Bomber fans. There was a Calgary fan as well there, dressed in head-to-toe gear, just illustrating that even if your team's not in the game, you're here and you're celebrating. Gavin Axelrod was out catching up with some of those fans at the Forks yesterday who watched the Grey Cup land, and the arrival ceremony began. The 2025 Grey Cup Festival does kick off today. It culminates with the Grey Cup Championship game, of course, next Sunday, which is on the 16th. Later today, the teams arrive. So the Alouettes get to Winnipeg at 4:30. The Rough Riders land just after 6 o'clock. And if you've never been to a Grey Cup, take advantage while it's in our city. It's really fun. What I find the most fun thing, having covered a number of them, is to go to the convention centers in the cities, including ours this time. That's your headquarters. They're calling it the Play Now Grey Cup headquarters. What happens is every province picks up a room. Every team picks up a different room, and they show off. So you're going to go into different parties, and they have different different themes and music, and then they have all kinds of different things going on. So, for example, Thursday night, Manitoba night, the Watchmen are going to be playing. Great local band. And they're going to have a Manitoba social at some point. Everyone will be in Bombers gear. You can go to the kitchen party. This is featuring Alan Doyle. This is the East Coast fans that would so much like to have a team. And also you get country night featuring the Rec Claws coming up on the weekend. So all kinds of great bands in town for all of this. I mentioned Alan Doyle. Before our next interview, let's have a little bit of that this Monday morning. Here he is with Come Out With Me.
Excuse me if I ask too much, but I bit my tongue for long enough. I beg your pardon if you please. Come on, come on, come out with me. I've been gone for far too long, and I worried hard that you'd moved on. And I will wish you prayer, a song, or plea. Come on, come on, come out with me. I spent my whole life waiting for tonight, honoring the devil in the middle of the deep dark sea. I hope you don't mind if I ask you once or twice. Come on, come on, come out with me. Oh, come on, come on, come out with me. There's a band of gypsies rolling through. They've been building up since 2:30. Came all the way from Flattery. Oh, come on, come on, come out with me. We're on our bodies dressed so fine. We're gonna have ourselves a time. We'll go waltzing 1, 2, 3. Oh, come on, come on, come out with me. I spent my whole life waiting for tonight, wanting the devil in the middle of the deep dark sea. I hope my chains ain't come and gone. So I'm down on bended knee. Come on, come on, come out with me. Oh, come on, come on, come out with me. I spent my whole life waiting for tonight, running from the devil in the middle of the deep dark sea. I hope you don't mind if I ask you once or twice. Come on, come on, come out with me. Oh, come on, come on, come out with me. Come on, come on, come out with me. Hey! Come on, come on, come out with me. Come on, come on, come out with me.
All right, Manitoba, let's show the country how to party. Great Cup Festival all week long in Winnipeg. And if you want to go out with him, check it out on Thursday night. Alan Doyle, he is playing a part of the festival. He will be part of the kitchen party night here in Winnipeg. Convention Center's headquarters for all the fun stuff. It is 6:25 a.m. right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are listening to Information Radio here, live from downtown Winnipeg. It's misty out there. It's -6. Well, next on the show, politicians, business leaders, scientists, and environmental groups are gathering in Brazil for COP30 this week with growing concerns time's running out to stop the worst effects of climate change. This is the annual UN Conference of Parties, or COP. It begins today, as I mentioned. It runs till November 21st. To set up the discussions and potential policy outcomes, Saba Khan is with us, international lawyer and climate director with the David Suzuki Foundation. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell me a bit about why why COP, for people that don't know, is so relevant to creating global policy.
Well, these conferences are the only place that, the entire world comes together to talk about how we will address climate change, which is the most, existential threat to humanity right now. So these conferences are critical. Now, 10 years ago at COP21, the Paris Agreement was adopted, and that represented a real turning point in climate diplomacy, because for the first time ever, all countries got together and mapped out a way that they will globally address the problem. Before that, we'd seen climate talks collapse in Copenhagen. We'd seen a lot of tension between, what developed countries should commit to and how much developing countries should be paying. So really, that turning point happened 10 years ago. Today, we've got the system that's really based on reporting on national climate targets and creating sort of a peer pressure-based, structure for countries to keep pushing for important climate measures.
I actually think that that turn of phrase you used is really spot on, the peer pressure aspect. Because the reality is 10 years ago when they set the targets, now you have something to look at and say, why haven't we met them? Because the world hasn't. Can you remind us where things stand globally on that target from Paris, from COP21?
Sure. So the latest rounds of climate targets that were submitted for 2035, first of all, it's discouraging to see that only a third of Paris parties submitted those targets. And they bring us, to a temperature increase, which is like far beyond where we should be in order to keep a thriving, livable planet. So it is discouraging to see what's happening. At the same time, big polluters like China, for the first time ever, presented a climate target this year with a detailed plan. In the United States, sure, the federal government has backtracked, but cities in the United States and communities remain steadfast. Certain state level action too is persisting. So we know that the world doesn't have to wait for the big polluters to move forward. There are local solutions, and COPs are also a moment for actors from indigenous representatives, civil society organizations to meet, subnational governments also, to see how we can unleash the power of renewable energies, protect natural ecosystems, and promote regenerative agriculture. So there is a lot of positive happening at the same time.
Well, I can appreciate what you're saying about sort of getting started, even if the biggest players aren't at the table. It is always going to be a problem, and people will be cynical that these meetings are going to be relevant or make a difference. And I guess the example that is being pulled out this year is last week, Brazil's president, where this is happening, was addressing world leaders and talking about the destruction of the tropical rainforests in his area. But then the three largest polluters, the States, China, and India, weren't there. So how can we continue to argue that it's worth the money to have these gatherings if the biggest polluters don't show?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the only solution to these kinds of problems are through concerted global effort. There are different ways that we can influence these actors. Trade is at the heart of all debates right now. And we even saw our own, government put forward a federal budget that mentions trade diversification hundreds of times. Details, though, are, lacking when it comes to how we can use trade to really propel our climate protection objectives and to halt the loss of biodiversity, to stop pollution, to stop ecological degradation. So the opportunities are there. From a trade perspective, we can see, Canada committing to eliminating fossil fuel subsidies and environmentally harmful investment protections. So I think that well, there are different avenues. If we take China, for instance, as an example, the market of renewables is exploding. Renewables growth in China in the first half of 2025 So we're talking about solar and wind projects. It was higher than the entire world combined. And these investments actually helped reduce fossil fuel generation in China in the same period. So the signs are there, and the global market is indicating that oil demand will peak in 2030. So any sort of further investment in expanding fossil fuels or, investing in technologies that are unproven and only serve to expand also, polluted fossil fuels like carbon capture and storage, this is not the direction that we should be going in.
All right, Saba Khan, thank you.
Thank you.
International lawyer and climate director with the David Suzuki Foundation, talking about COP30, which is on this week and goes till the 21st. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is a little misty out there, -6 right now. We start the day with a bit of fog patches, and then we're going to be mostly cloudy. A strong south wind warming us up to 1. Even warmer as Grey Cup festivities get underway through the rest of the week. A Winnipeg criminal defense lawyer says his firm has been saddled with a massive workload in the wake of charges involving 4 police officers. Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty on Friday to a number of charges and is expected to spend at least 2 years behind bars. Last month, the Manitoba Prosecution Service sent letters to a number of defense lawyers who had cases involving Bostock or the other officers, asking them to look for any misconduct that may have resulted in a miscarriage of justice. Brett Gladstone says his firm received around 80 to 100 of those letters.
It's quite a gargantuan undertaking, and I am no bounty hunter. I do not know how to track these humans down a decade later.
Gladstone says they are triaging the most recent cases in case someone is still serving time. A woman whose father's grave has been found empty says the cemetery isn't taking responsibility for the missing body. Elizabeth Patrick wanted to move her father, a World War II vet, from Green Acres in Winnipeg to a veteran cemetery in Ontario. Service Corporation International, or SCI, owns Green Acres, but says it's not liable for the missing remains. Winnipeg lawyer Troy Harwood-Jones says SCI's liability will depend on the details of the sale.
Did you buy the company? If you bought all the shares of the company, then you are the company, and you are liable for the wrongs of the company. A cemetery has to maintain accurate records with respect to the plots and with respect to the dates of death and all of the details that relate to the remains.
RCMP also used ground-penetrating radar to search the site in June but found nothing. Patrick hopes to receive a settlement and then use the funds to pay for her father's veteran headstone and for her legal fees. The U.S. government is one step closer to ending a shutdown that has been going on for 40 days as the Senate last night passing a bill to fund the U.S. government.
On this vote, the yeas are 60 and the nays are 40. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn having voted in the affirmative. The motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
A group of centrist Democrats supported the bill along with the Republicans. Jeanne Shaheen is a Democratic U.S. Senator from New Hampshire.
I understand that not all of my Democratic colleagues are satisfied with this agreement, but waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome. It would only mean more harm for families in New Hampshire and all across the country.
The bill still needs to pass the U.S. House of Representatives, where Republicans have a majority. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in New Brunswick today, launching his government's Buy Canadian policy. It's designed to ensure all federal spending goes first to Canadian industries. The policy applies to government contractors working on defense and construction projects, but its initial focus will be on Canadian steel and softwood lumber. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. As temperatures drop, Winnipeg outreach groups and shelters are in desperate need of warm clothes. Morgan's Warriors does outreach in downtown Winnipeg. Co-founder Melissa Robinson says their group goes out several times a week, and people who are homeless or who have been living in encampments aren't prepared for the temperature change. Robinson's group recently helped a young woman who was hypothermic and couldn't move to find a shelter, even though the weather is getting warmer this week.
We know how cold Winnipeg can get in our winters, right? -30, -40 with the wind chill. Already, people are struggling out there. And our biggest concern is, people are going to fall asleep under the influence and just not wake up.
She says people can drop off warm winter coats, hoodies, toques, mitts, and woolen socks at Thunderbird House. Main Street Project is also looking for donations of warm winter clothing. Well, let the festivities begin. Grey Cup week in Winnipeg, and even though the Blue Bombers aren't in it, football fans are ready to party. Businesses in Winnipeg also hope to cash in on the excitement. Colin Coop is one of the owners of Devil May Care in downtown Winnipeg, hosting a few Grey Cup festival events.
We're a bit of an unknown quantity out there, one of the smallest breweries certainly in the city and in the province. So any opportunity to show people what we do well is definitely something that I look forward to.
The province estimates hosting the Grey Cup will result in a boost of $90 million in economic activities. The CFL's top prize arrived in Winnipeg yesterday by military helicopter at the Forks. Well, 600 career points.
Connor in the slump scores! A lightning release from Connor. The Jets are on.
Kyle Connor in the second period on TSN. He joins Ilya Kovalchuk, Blake Wheeler, and Mark Scheifele as the only Jets players to reach the 600-point milestone in franchise history. Still, Winnipeg loses last night to Anaheim. This hasn't been the best road trip for the Jets, losing all 3 games in California. Coach Scott Arniel had hopes at the beginning of that game.
Start was good, had some looks, but then we gave up some odd man rush the second period. I like the fact that we put 5, 6, 7 shifts in a row where it looked like everybody kind of being on the same page.
But then the Jets couldn't outpace the Ducks. Winnipeg stays on the road now, heading to Vancouver Tuesday night. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news center. You're with CBC here live in downtown Winnipeg. It's time for your regional forecast across Manitoba with Abby.
Yeah, we're looking at a mostly cloudy day, breezy conditions at some point with fog patches this morning in the south, while we're looking at a mix of cloudy conditions and flurries through parts of the north. Winnipeg right now -6 and misty out there. This fog conditions should clear as we get into the morning before the skies will turn mainly cloudy with gusty south winds. We warm up to about 1 degree later today. Similar conditions we're tracking in the Pembina Valley region around Morden down to the U.S. border. We're looking at -8 now. Misty also there. It's going to be cloudy and windy later today. You warm up to about 1. Heading west to Brandon and surrounding regions, tracking it towards Nipawin. We're looking at -10 at this time. It's also cloudy there. We're going to see some breezy conditions with few breaks of sun later for the Westman region, and you warm up to about 4. In the Parkland region from Dauphin, tracking it towards Russell, -2. It's clear out there. It's going to turn cloudy later, and you're going to see some mild southwest winds pushing highs near 5 degrees. Gimli, good morning. You're at -5 at this time. Some lingering fog hanging around, and then you'll see some cloudy and breezy conditions through the day with highs just close to +1. In the powerful influence our communities, we're looking at temperatures hover between -1 and -2 at this time with cloudy skies. There's a good chance of afternoon flurries and a touch of freezing rain coming your way. You warm up to about 0 later. And further north in Churchill, we've seen -4 at this time. It's cloudy there. Snow on its way. You should get that around your lunch break, midday towards your lunch break, with temperatures just getting a bit above -1, close to 0 later today. For Churchill, we're looking at -11 at this time. It's clearer there. It's going to be sunny to start with, and then we'll see snow developing later in the day, high around -2. So across board, Marcy, it's cloudy. It's going to get windy at some point with a mild, patch of a mix of a few snowy spots up north. But right now, Winnipeg, -6 and misty.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is here to tee up the commute here.
Yeah, some highway conditions are not ideal, particularly if you're up north between Leaf Rapids and Lynn Lake. Seeing some poor visibility, partly covered conditions according to Manitoba 501. Also, just around Winnipeg in general right now this morning, you might see some poor visibility as well on the highways if you're kind of coming off the perimeter, heading north, east, south. Just those immediate highways right around Winnipeg, some poor visibility as well. Other than that, though, seems like things are going fairly smoothly so far. Might be a little slick in some places, so heads up if you're walking, biking, driving. But you can give me a call if you see something. 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Business News now with Hallie Cottenham, who joins us via Zoom. Hey there, Hallie.
Hi, Marcy. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I was on the roads yesterday in the snow for the first time this year. Not pleasant.
I know. Even this morning, actually, I found myself zipping around, and then it was a bit greasy over the bridge, and I'm like, okay, slow your roll, Marcusa. Like, you got to remind yourself. Yeah, we all do. Let's talk about the states to begin, because we're hearing this morning about a major breakthrough in their government shutdown.
Yeah, the Senate took these first steps to end the shutdown last night, as you heard in Heather's News and on World Report. Just enough Democrats broke with their own party to vote with the Republicans supporting this bipartisan deal that would fund the government until the end of January. But it is controversial, Marcy, because they're not getting the health care concessions that they've been holding out for more than 40 days. On the other side of things, though, overseas markets in Europe and Asia are loving this development. Across the board gains, U.S. Treasury yields are up. Now, final passage of this still several days away. Meanwhile, U.S. airlines canceled more than 2,700 flights yesterday, and nearly 10,000 flights were delayed yesterday alone because of the cascading effect.
Yeah, I've got a lot of people that we're asking, here even, right?
Exactly.
What that's going to mean for them. Speaking of travel, we know a lot of Canadians are limiting their trips to the United States, but now that the snow and ice have arrived, are people wavering as well?
I had the same question because I wondered whether this was where the rubber hits the road when the temperature shoots down and the snow comes. But it appears as though, Marcy, the informal boycott is still having an effect. Flight Centre Canada saying new bookings to the U.S. down 40% so far this year. A survey from the Travel Health Insurance Association of Canada says it's baby boomers who are staying away in droves, voting with their wallets, I guess. The number heading to the U.S. this winter dropping by 2/3, according to their survey. Compare that with folks under 30, where those interested in heading south decreased by just 18%. I don't know if you caught this, but just yesterday, our colleague Ian Hannamansing aired part of an interview he did with Louise Penny, the best-selling author, and he asked her about her decision to boycott the U.S., including not promoting her latest book there.
My not going isn't going to change anything, but my going would be acquiescence.
Still, Marcy, some U.S. destinations are trying to lure Canadians back. One of Montana's main travel destinations, reaching out specifically to Canadians, offering what they're calling the Canadian Welcome Pass. The local tourism association says that credit card spending from international visitors, including Canada, is down 39%. And California is putting ads like this on Canadian TV, showing, among other things, glossy images of beautiful rolling vineyards in Sonoma.
Truth is, California just wouldn't be California without Canada. Thank you, Canada.
And still other destinations are sweetening the offer in a very real way, offering Canadian at par rates.
You hit me where it hurts this morning because we usually go to California every December, and not happening this year.
Well, California, now they're saying we're different.
But they're not. You're still crossing the border. Finally, a story about a weird lottery in Paris, France. I don't know a better word to use than weird, because the prize is a cemetery plot?
Yeah, I think it's pretty creative.
Yeah.
It's a campaign to raise money to restore ancient tombs that have fallen into disrepair. The families, long gone. It costs €125 to enter this lottery, and if you win, you get a chance at some pretty special real estate. It's a burial plot, but one where your neighbors are famous. Think Oscar Wilde and think Edith Piaf or this fellow traveler.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when
That's the Doors' Jim Morrison, who occupies a spot in the Père Lachaise Cemetery. Between it and two other famous cemeteries, there are 30 tombs in need of adopting. I didn't realize this, though it makes sense. Turns out cemeteries in central Paris have been almost full since the beginning of the 1900s. French regulations makes it really difficult to evict abandoned graves or, make space for new occupants. So if you win this lottery, which, by the way, is open till the end of the year, You'll pay 4,000 euros plus restoration costs, but in return, you get a plot for your or your loved one's remains. If you want a long-term lease, it's 1,000 euros per 10 years or 20,000 euros. You can stay there forever.
Super interesting. Also a good tune. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Take care, Marcy.
That's Hallie Cotton with our live business news. 6:44 a.m. It's Monday morning. You up early and maybe making lunch, thinking about what you're going to make for supper? Are you trying to make those groceries stretch? StatsCan says that food prices are still climbing, and for a lot of us in this country, the grocery bill is where the affordability crisis hits hardest. This weekend, CBC's Cross Country Checkup asked people, what is one thing the government should do to cut grocery prices, and how are you cutting costs? Here's some callers.
I'm a grain farmer and a buffalo producer. The Combines Act, which is something an old-timer told me about during the, past, he said that that's something that maybe needs to be resuscitated. And maybe the Competition Bureau, maybe that's something else. But I'm a grain farmer, and I guess here's the deal. You look at $8.50 for a bushel of wheat. A bushel of wheat is about 60 pounds. So that's about 1.5 cents a pound that the farmer gets paid. You just have to look at what 10 pounds of flour is in the store, and you figure out who's making the money.
Sometimes the underground economy starts to thrive. I was walking downtown and bumped into a lady who had clearly stolen a $35 package of steaks and was selling it for $10. And I can't remember the last time I had a half-inch or a three-quarter-inch steaks like that, and I thought the $10 would help her. So you're darn tootin' I took it. And so if they can't catch these folks, it's unfortunate. But I haven't had a steak like that in a long time because I, out of principle, just won't pay for the exorbitant prices.
You've got three major players in Canada from Loblaw, Sobeys, and Metro. My suggestion for Canada is to bring in outside corporations, and maybe from Europe, who want to start up in the grocery business. To entice them, the government gives them tax breaks for 5 or 6 years till they have their plants up and running, provided they hire only Canadian employees. It's better to get 5% of something than 100% of nothing.
Yeah, I just want to say that there should be some teeth in legislation that the federal government puts forth for price gouging. There's, for the last scam that went through, was bread price fixing, and there was some money paid back. You could get $12 for, all the bread that you overpaid for. But there should be actual teeth in the legislation that says if you're caught doing price fixing on whatever product it happens to be, that the CEO goes to jail.
Those are some of the callers from Cross Country Checkup yesterday responding to the question, what is one thing the government you think should do to cut grocery prices, and how are you cutting costs? If you want to hear more suggestions from coast to coast to coast, you can download the Cross Country Checkup podcast.
At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, Canadians pause to reflect and remember for those who served, for those who fought, for those who died, and for those who returned home. On November 11th, live from the National War Memorial in Ottawa, join CBC News for special coverage of the Remembrance Day ceremony on CBC and local streaming channels.
And a reminder, we do have live programming here at CBC Manitoba all through the day tomorrow as well. It is 13 minutes to 7 o'clock now. And speaking of our community, Manitoba, we actually have some local music from Winnipeg indie band His, also known as Aiden Bello. This one's called Get Go.
I got a new home, I gotta get mine. I've been killing so much time from the get-go. I got a new show, I gotta get on. I've been wasting so much time, don't you know?
little bit of his for you this morning. That's Get Go, and just a tiny little correction there. They are from Toronto, but you probably catch them around town sometimes because they do some recording here in Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio live in downtown Winnipeg as well. It's misty -6. Brandon's mainly clear. You're at -10 this morning. Thompson's mostly cloudy and -4, and you are expecting snow in that northern Manitoba city. That will begin right around noon, and your high is going to be 0 today. Well, next on the show, Ottawa's first proposed budget came out last week. It's raising concerns about the future of healthcare. The Canadian Health Coalition says it cuts nearly $400 million from Health Canada and other health agencies. It comes at a time when many Canadians are already struggling to get care that they need. Stephen Staples is here with the Canadian Health Coalition, an advocacy group, to have a look at the budget that came out last week. Hey there.
Hi, Marcy.
So your coalition says this budget weakens healthcare. What kind of cuts are we talking about that are concerning you?
Yeah, it's it's no doubt the economy's looking troublesome in the future with the impact of President Trump's tariffs, and the budget is really focused on financial and foreign investment in Canada, and a little bit less focused on, well, quite a bit less actually, focused on our social safety net, including healthcare. And so we're going to see some cuts starting right away and progressively deeper over the next few years. We're going to see a reduction in terms of the ability of the federal government to protect the healthcare of Canada, whether it's inspecting food, whether it's enforcing things like the Canada Health Act, whether it's getting a good price on drugs. So we're going to see impact there. And to see a reduction in agreements between provinces and territories, special bilateral agreements over time. So it's a bit concerning that we seem to be pulling back, the federal government's pulling back on expanding and continuing to support healthcare at a time when Canadians may really need it as economic troubles loom on the horizon.
How vulnerable is the system, given what you've said and everything else that's going on with our economy right now?
Well, Canadians tell us they feel that there's a crisis in our healthcare system. We know that there's 6.5 million people who can't get access to a family doctor or a similar care physician. We still have long-standing issues in our long-term healthcare sector. We've got workers saying that they're being burned out. There's trouble with retention of healthcare workers in the system. So it's still under a lot of strain. But the federal government is essentially taking the approach that they're going to make good on any agreements that were done in the past under the previous government. So the biggest, for instance, the biggest transfer from the federal government to the provinces is called the Canada Health Transfer. That's going to stay in place and will continue to be increased over the next number of years. But alongside that, Marcy, are a lot of bilateral agreements that are made to address certain problems. They're time-bound, so they don't go forever, and as they wind up, the federal government is not indicating that they're going to renew those agreements or replace them with any other agreements. So overall, we're going to see a reduction in the capacity of Ottawa to work for healthcare, and in the provinces as well, as some of those transfers decrease. So that's something of concern for sure.
I was just looking up as we're talking here, some of the reaction here to the budget last week, and there were certainly newcomers reacting because this budget reduces health coverage for refugees as one of the lines. How do you think that's going to affect people?
Yeah, that one's really a shame. I mean, this is where the Prime Minister Carney gets tagged with the Stephen Harper label from previous Conservative governments, because the Conservative governments did the same thing as well. So in the budget, they've announced that they're going to increase what's called co-payments, the kind of fees that refugees will have to pay to get access to care. You see, as they're being processed, as they're waiting to find out their status, refugees may not be covered under provincial programs and rely on federal programs in order to cover health care costs should they come up. So the federal government is going to make them pay a little bit greater share of that care through co-pays. And I was talking to doctors groups over the weekend, and they said, look, they may do this, but any kind of financial barrier, especially for these are very low income workers, some of whom are in the healthcare system, working for the healthcare system, it's going to prevent them from getting the care they need. And doctors just going to end up back in the emergency room. It's good that the situation is going to be worse. The treatment's going to be more expensive. So it really doesn't make sense to make this cut. And you know, you can't help but notice that the federal government's cutting money on private jets and luxury yachts, but yet asking more money from refugees. I mean, it just doesn't seem to be very fair.
When you look at the overall approach of the budget, what does it say to you about the federal government's priorities for healthcare?
Well, for sure, this budget is all about infrastructure. It's all about shifting priorities, more money in certain areas like defense and other aspects, reining in money for other aspects. And the finance minister has asked for cuts from all his ministries, and we're now seeing the details of those cuts, lots of job reductions. And so, as I mentioned, while he's maintaining the current agreements, there's no real vision for healthcare here in this federal government, and really kind of a lack of a recognition of the important role that public healthcare plays in our economy. Certainly, you can't go to work if you're not feeling well, and healthcare does employ a lot of people. In fact, you get more jobs for the dollar in healthcare than you do in other areas. And so, particularly as people may lose their benefits, as they lose their jobs, we'll become more reliant on our social safety net. So I'm not sure that the federal government really recognizes the important role that healthcare plays in that economy that they're trying to bolster. Instead, these cutbacks seem to be undermining the kind of thing that they're actually trying to do. So we'll be looking to see if we can get those cuts reversed over the coming years. We've got our work cut out for us.
All right, Stephen, thank you very much for your time as always.
Thank you.
That is Stephen Staples, National Director of Policy and Advocacy with the Canadian Health Coalition. We reached him this morning in Toronto. If you want to read more about the budget, by the way, you can always go to our website. We always put a Manitoba lens on everything, of course. So you can go to cbc.ca/Manitoba to read more about some reaction here to the budget that came out last week. In advance of Heather Wells joining us on the air here with headlines, I just want to mention a couple things in traffic going to the top of the clock here. So be careful out on some of the highways. Sections around Leaf Rapids and Lynn Lake could be a little bit slippery for you. You could have some issues with snow coverage and such. In the city of Winnipeg, we've got that low-lying fog. It's kind of misty out there. Streets could be greasy, especially over the bridges. And the ice patches, of course, now are out there, so you're going to want to watch near the stop signs. Poor visibility around the perimeter ring is possible because of the fog, so take care with that. And call us if you see any problems, which is 788-3093. In addition to what we've said, if we have something to add to the list, we'll pass it along here on the air on CBC. Before we get into our full weather forecast and look ahead at the next hour, Heather is here with our news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg defense lawyer is struggling to review dozens of historical cases involving 4 disgraced police officers. Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty to a number of charges on Friday and faces a sentence behind bars. Last month, the Manitoba Prosecution Service asked several defense lawyers to review old files, and one lawyer we spoke with says it is a gargantuan task. As temperatures drop, Winnipeg outreach groups and shelters are in desperate need of warm clothes. We're going to hear from one outreach group, Morgan's Warriors, coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Going to need them today for sure. Misty -6 right now in Winnipeg, and the high is only 1 degree. We're going to have a cloudy day, and as I mentioned, there's some early morning fog. Winds are also going to be pretty gusty around noontime, becoming south 20, and then they'll increase up to 40 or even 60 kilometers per hour. It's the kind of day we've got ahead. And ahead in the next hour, we're going to talk to a woman who says she was both shocked and scared after finding a bike that was stolen from her garage, listed on Facebook Marketplace. She'll tell us what she did next to get it back. She'll also tell us what it was like to work through that with the Winnipeg Police Service. In addition, we'll find out how the love for a Canadian coffee chain, Robin's Donuts, has hatched a growing nest of collectibles for one Winnipeg collector. Our community reporter was out talking with him. And then at 10 to 8 this morning, more on what Heather's been mentioning in the news about the police officer from Winnipeg who has now pleaded guilty to multiple charges. Just to repeat here, breach of trust and offering an indignity to human remains. Today, we will speak to a former police chief out of BC to hear his reaction and to discuss the impact on public trust when police are charged with crimes. We're going to also hear more about what our police chief had to say about it here. So stay tuned for that. It is 1 minute to 7 o'clock. World Report is next on 89.3 FM. Stay with us.
Day on The Current.
Writing it down felt like this wonderful way to stop time.
The New Yorker writer Susan Orlean finds stories everywhere. She's written about everything from orchid theft to the life of a 10-year-old boy. Now she's writing about her own sometimes wild life. My onstage interview with Susan Orlean from the Vancouver Writers' Fest on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. CBC's Visual Investigations Unit is revealing details from a secretive neo-Nazi conference held in Vancouver this summer. The event brought white nationalists together, among them mixed martial arts coaches, trainers, and gym owners. As CBC's Eric Cito reports, experts say the sport is becoming a gateway for white nationalist recruiting.
We need an ethnic religion. You, as a white person, they want you to be alone and isolated.
Make no mistake, we are at war.
These are parts of speeches from the Exiles of the Golden Age conference, held this summer at a secret venue in Vancouver. A networking event focusing on forming disciplined groups of men who can rebuild the world amidst the coming wreckage. Organized and attended by a who's who of Canadian neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and fascists. CBC's Visual Investigations team looked into many of the more than 50 people who were there, thanks to verified video gathered by the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, a nonprofit which studies and exposes far-right extremism.
We knew that very specifically this is a neo-Nazi event.
Evan Balgord, their executive director, says the conference shows white nationalism in Canada is growing.
They have managed to sort of figure out a unified and coherent strategy, and they are successfully recruiting large numbers of people doing it.
CBC News is also identifying several mixed martial arts gym owners, trainers, and coaches who attended the event. Experts say this sport is increasingly becoming a gateway for white supremacist recruiting. One attendee was a strength trainer who worked out of a gym in Mission, BC. We spoke to the owner.
Yeah, I'm just blown away a little bit by all of this.
Is he still going to be at your gym?
I've told him to leave the gym.
We reached out to some of the conference attendees for comment, but the Exiles of the Golden Age group told anyone who was there not to respond to our requests. Eric Cito, CBC News, Toronto.
To learn more about who attended this neo-Nazi conference, read the CBC Visual Investigation Team's full report at cbcnews.ca.
It looks like we're getting close to the shutdown ending. You'll know very soon. Thank you very much.
U.S. President Donald Trump speaking outside the White House late last night. A bloc of Senate Democrats voted in favor of reopening the government. It has been 40 days since the shutdown began, the longest in U.S. history, and it could be over in the next few days. But not all Democrats are happy with the deal. The CBC's Katie Simpson has more from Washington.
On this vote, the yeas are 60 and the nays are 40.
A procedural vote on the Senate floor kicked off the major breakthrough so many Americans had been hoping for. After a weekend of intense negotiations, a bipartisan agreement was reached, a series of compromises to reopen and continue funding the U.S. government.
Mr. President, again, I am optimistic that after almost 6 weeks of the shutdown, we'll finally be able to end it.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune acknowledging it could take a few days for the process to be finalized, eventually bringing to an end the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Strain on the American public was clear. Federal workers were not being paid. Food assistance programs were in limbo, and thousands of flights were canceled or delayed because of staffing shortages and safety concerns. But this is not the end many Democrats had been hoping for, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The American people know who is inflicting this health care trauma on them. Donald Trump and the Republicans.
The deal does not include an extension of health care subsidies that expire at the end of the year, the same subsidies Democrats had demanded be extended in exchange for the votes needed to fund the government. While this fight may have started a national conversation about health care, there is nothing new at this time to help Americans facing higher insurance costs. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy will be released from prison. A Paris court says Sarkozy will be under judicial supervision once he's released later today. Sarkozy began his 5-year prison sentence last month and served just under 3 weeks. He was convicted for criminal conspiracy over a funding scheme during his 2007 election campaign. Under his release term, Sarkozy is under judicial supervision and is banned from leaving France. Sarkozy's lawyer says he plans to appeal his conviction. The outgoing head of BBC News is defending her journalists.
I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased.
Do you think that the journalists are institutionally corrupt, like President Trump says? Do you think the journalists
Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality.
BBC News CEO Deborah Turness resigned last night. So did the head of the British public broadcaster, Tim Davie. They say they are taking responsibility for an editorial failure. A leaked internal report accused the BBC of distorting a clip of U.S. President Donald Trump. It also raised concerns about the BBC's coverage of trans issues and the war in Gaza. The Philippines is assessing the damage left by Typhoon Fangwang. Some people are let off a large rescue truck. Some had to be saved from the roofs of their flooded homes. Others watched flash floods and landslides destroy their houses. Officials say at least 4 people are dead and more than 1 million people have been displaced. Fangwang hit the northern Philippines as a super typhoon yesterday. It is getting weaker as it makes its way over the South China Sea towards Taiwan. Flu cases are on the rise in Canada. Alberta has reported its first death from influenza, and medical experts are preparing for a tough flu season. As health reporter Lauren Pelly tells us, record cases have been reported abroad.
Well, Australia is battling its worst flu season on record.
The Southern Hemisphere often gives a preview for what Canada can expect. And this year, it's grim. Australia hit more than 400,000 lab-confirmed flu infections, up from the previous all-time high of 365,000 just last year. Scientists are also watching an evolving form of influenza that's quickly spilling north.
And that's what we're seeing right now from an early season in the UK, an early season in Japan, where H3N2 is predominating.
Dr. Jesse Papenburg spoke to us from the Montreal Children's Hospital. He's among those bracing for a tough flu season in Canada, too. The latest federal figures, out Friday, show influenza infections are on the rise. 2% of tests are now coming back positive, and they show a mix of strains, including H3N2.
But what's perhaps a little concerning is that towards the tail end of the influenza season in the Southern Hemisphere, we started seeing some variants of the H3N2 influenza A subtype that had mutations that may make the vaccine less effective against them.
But just because a vaccine might be less effective doesn't make it pointless. Infectious disease specialist Dr. Alison McGeer says Canadians should still get a flu shot this year in particular because
H3N2 seasons are the worst kind of flu season usually.
They're known for causing more serious illness, and older adults are most at risk. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
For the first time, the faces of Japanese Canadian veterans who served in the First and Second World Wars are on display in the streets of Vancouver. They fought for Canada without even having the right to vote. As Ashley Burke tells us, there is now a push to tell their stories of service.
These were young men who gave their whole lives, and no one remembers them.
Debbie Jang spent more than a decade digging through wartime records and tracking down descendants of heroes she says never got the recognition they deserved.
I feel like I'm bringing back to life that person, and their names would otherwise never be known.
She says almost 200 Japanese Canadians fought in the First World War for Canada in some of the most famous battles, from Vimy Ridge to Passchendaele.
The Germans were afraid of them because they were fierce fighters.
They fought for the right to vote after Japanese Canadians were banned in 1895.
They had wives and children, and yet they risked their lives to make a point.
But despite their service during the Second World War, veterans like Private Otoji Kamachi were among the 22,000 Japanese Canadians the government forced out of their homes, placed in internment camps, and sold off their belongings. Canada deemed them a threat after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor.
They put their name forward and sacrificed, and some lost their lives.
Kelly Shibata is Comanche's grandson.
We have virtually no information about his time in the military. He never spoke about it with his family.
He only recently learned details about his grandfather's remarkable time in uniform. Now Comanche's image is on a large banner on the street in Vancouver with 20 other Japanese Canadian veterans. Their faces sending a powerful message. Their stories still need to be told. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Manitoba, and welcome to Grey Cup Week. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. If you're watching there, you'll see I'm wearing my bomber blue, getting ready for a lot of people to come to town. It is misty in Winnipeg this morning. Abby will be in with that full forecast in just a moment. This hour on the program, to serious matters. The Winnipeg Police's bust of a suspected bicycle chop shop in Point Douglas encampment has led to 2 arrests back in April. But what has happened since, we are going to find out. So that's coming up actually after 8. This hour, though, to a Winnipeg Police story. An officer has pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including breach of trust and offering indignity to human remains. We are talking this hour to a former police chief in this country to hear his reaction to what's happening here with our service and with those charges. We'll talk about the impact on public trust when police are charged with crimes. So stay tuned. That's ahead. Speaking of bikes, though, I mentioned the after 8 o'clock interview we have, but we this hour are going to talk to a woman who says she was shocked and scared after finding a bike that was stolen from her garage, ended up listed on Facebook Marketplace. We'll tell you what she did to get it back. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. Heather Wells is in with other headlines now, though, at 7:11. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a UK woman is looking for compensation after a Manitoba cemetery lost her father's remains. Elizabeth Patrick wanted to move her father, a World War II vet, from Green Acres Cemetery in Winnipeg to a veteran cemetery in Ontario. When the grave was excavated, the body wasn't there. We're going to hear about that. And this is a sound not only football fans, but the province loves. The start of Grey Cup festivities in Winnipeg. And even though the Bombers aren't in it, fans are ready to party. And the province estimates hosting the Grey Cup is going to result in a boost of $90 million to Manitoba's economy. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
It's fun too, Heather. People
go, it is.
Even though we're not in the game, music, and there's those interactive zones that go up if you want to take the kids. Right, there's one right next door, I think, being set up at the U of W gym here. So yeah, it's a fun time.
So much to do.
Yeah, and we'll do the math after to see if those what they're hoping for in terms of bringing in the economic boost if that happens. Yeah, lots of good places to eat. If you're listening, if you're not from here, check it out. Okay, let's get into what's happening weather-wise. We also have decent weather for the game. I'll mention that, and then Abby's going to talk about today. But Sunday is the Grey Cup, of course, and we got a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 1. So we'll see if that holds. It could change. What's it like this Monday morning, though, Abby?
Yeah, this Monday morning, Marcy, we're waking up to foggy conditions in the southern parts of the province, while up north it's a bit cold with some flurries still being present there. Winnipeg right now, -5, misty outside. That should clear, and then we're going to be sticking around with more of mainly cloudy conditions. That will turn breezy at some point with our winds coming from the south, and a high would only be around +1. Across the south, we're looking at -9 in Brandon, -5 in Dauphin, and -6 around Gimli. So temperatures down south, it's between -10 and -5 this morning, while up north we're seeing -1 around Flin Flon. Thompson is at -3 and Churchill at -10. But Winnipeg, we are around -5. We're going to see a mix of cloudy conditions, fog patches clearing this morning, and then some winds will be picking up later, but some snowy spots up north. Right now, Winnipeg, -5 and misty.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, what do you know?
So far, overall, a quiet commute But if you are on the highways, just heads up, visibility might be an issue just around Winnipeg this morning. Also might be some issues if you're up between Lynn Lake and Leaf Rapids there. Some partly covered conditions and poor visibility according to Manitoba 511. But if you see something else going on out there, feel free to give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, for some cyclists in Winnipeg, bike theft is nothing new. Locks and bike registries do help, but for a lot of people, it's still not enough. Eva Kwok is our next guest. She lives here in the city of Winnipeg. In February, 2 bikes were stolen from her garage overnight. She's set out on a mission to find them, and to her surprise, she actually did. She successfully located them. She's on the line now with that story, especially because we've got a couple of stories this morning about bike theft. Hi there, Eva. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Morning.
Thanks for being here. Tell me a bit about the moment when you realized your bikes are missing. Like, did you walk in the garage? How did you come to find this happen to you?
Yeah, that was basically what happened. I woke up one morning in February and saw that our door had been broken into, and I didn't have my bikes locked in the garage. Maybe naively, but yeah, I saw they were gone, and I was shocked to say the least.
What was it feeling otherwise? I mean, having, anyone who's been a victim of something like this, there's always a lot of feelings around that when you're looking at your property, altered.
Well, it's definitely an invasion of privacy. You're just, I thought that they were safe in my garage, and to see that, somebody has forcibly broken in and taken my bikes, I was pretty sad. I love biking, and just to see them gone was really heartbreaking.
So how many were gone, and were they your bikes, or tell me a bit about what was taken?
Yeah, they had taken 2 bikes that were in our garage. One was just a standard kind of, like sports bike that you can find, and then the other one was a Dutch bike that I had gotten from a local shop in Winnipeg. And I knew especially the Dutch bike was one that would be hard to replace, and can be very expensive as well.
And just so people, if they don't know what a Dutch bike is, can you describe that a bit?
Yeah, it's basically like a commuter bike. It's something that you would see often in the Netherlands. There's a bicycle shop called Plain Bicycle that sells them, and it's great for commuting. I use it to get to work and to get groceries and everything. So just seeing that gone was, it was a loss of the way I get around and my transportation. It was very sad to see it gone.
They're pretty heavy, those bikes too. So I'm just imagining them taking that. So what did you do next? What were your steps to, once you figured that these bikes were gone?
We filed a police report, and for my one bike, I had the serial number. For my Dutch bike, because it's a bit different than the typical bikes you see here, I didn't have the serial number for that. But we reported them both missing, showed them, or took pictures of the damage, and filed that police report.
Got it.
And then I started looking on Facebook Marketplace every day to see if I could find my bikes.
Now, one of your bikes came back to you because the one that was registered found its way back. Is that right? So did police just call you and say, "Hey, we found your bike"?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what had happened, but they said that someone reported a stolen bike on their property, and the police came and picked that up. They matched our serial number, and then we got a call to come pick it up. So we were able to get that back.
How far away was it? Like, was it in a neighborhood? Was it found dumped nearby, or was it like across the city? Just out of curiosity.
We're not sure. The police didn't give us that information.
Got it. You said you were scanning Marketplace, so let's talk about the other bike. I'm presuming this is the Dutch bike then.
Yes.
Did you see it pop up on Marketplace?
Yeah, it was a few weeks later, about a month later, after looking every day, I finally saw it. It was listed for $100, and it was someone who had it seemed like a fake profile. They said that they were from Nova Scotia, but the pickup was in Winnipeg, and I was shocked to see my bike.
So what did you do next? Because you actually, I understand, I know part of this. You reached out to the non-emergency line. What did they say to you?
Yeah, as soon as I saw the bike, that's what I did. I called the non-emergency line and spoke with a police officer, and he had actually told me that, I was hoping that maybe, like, this is my bike, I have a police report, that maybe someone could come with me to retrieve my bike back. But the police officer had said that they can't do anything about it. There's a property value threshold, and the bike didn't pass that, so they don't really concern themselves with cases like that. And then they also told me that, they can't prove that the people selling it are necessarily the people who stole the bike as well. So by the end of the phone call, it was basically, you're on your own.
Did they give you advice, or did they say you're okay to go meet with, to try to buy it back? What did they say to you?
They did say that, they recommend not going to meet with them because we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
But I said, I was like, well, I'm going to get my bike back. So if that's the case, then what should I do? And he did recommend to maybe meet up at a police station, or, at one of those selling exchange spots that they have.
And did you do that? Because I know that you did actually take steps to reach the seller, right?
Yes. Yeah. I did not. I figured that they probably would not want to meet in a place like that, and I just wanted to get my bike back as soon as possible. It was listed for $100, so I knew that if anyone else was looking, they'd be interested. So I just messaged them. They gave me a pickup address, and I went.
And how did it go?
So my partner and I went, and we didn't want any confrontation because we didn't know who we were meeting, and we didn't know, we didn't want to cause any issues. So we just showed up with $100 in cash, and it was a really quick exchange. Here's the money. We took the bike, loaded up in our truck, and then we left.
How were you feeling driving there and in that moment?
Well, I was pretty scared for sure, especially after that phone call with the police, and knowing that we were on our own, just not knowing, like, who are we meeting, and how is this going to go. So that's kind of why we didn't want to have do a confrontation and accuse them of anything. We just wanted to get the bike and go.
How did it make you feel when police said that they couldn't help?
Well, I was definitely pretty disappointed hearing that. I know it's very common for people to list stolen bikes on Facebook Marketplace. So I thought there would be a system there where, if we have a police report, and, in this case, I didn't have a serial number, but if somebody else had a serial number, like, hey, this is my bike, can we go get it back? And yeah, so I was pretty disappointed that there was nothing that they could do, really.
After the exchange, you get your bike back. Obviously, then you're kind of taking stock of what has happened. So you were in a neighborhood that was not your own neighborhood to get the bike, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So was it around the Burroughs Keewatin area, I understand?
Yes.
Where your pickup was. Okay. And you're in Crescentwood. When you guys were, leaving, you said you and your partner, what were your thoughts on this? Like, what else can you tell us? Did you confront the seller at all? Did you consider ever confronting the seller?
Well, it definitely came to mind. We told a lot of friends about the story, and a lot of people would say, like, oh, I would just steal it back or ride away with it, or, or be like, hey, where did you get this bike? But yeah, we knew that, like, they had our bike and could potentially remember where they had gotten it from. So, if we had confronted them, they might have come back and did something worse, and we were worried about our safety as well. So we
As you outlined earlier, that worry carries through, which makes, total human sense. Well, I'm glad you got your bike back and you're all right, Eva. You are one of people who are going to relate to this, right? A lot of people in the city have had bikes stolen. We appreciate you sharing your story. We actually have a follow-up with police a little bit later in the show coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Eva Kwok with us live this morning, Winnipeg resident. As you heard, she managed to retrieve her bikes, got one back. Police found the other. It was registered. They were stolen from her garage in February. So later this morning, in about an hour from now, we're going to talk after 8 with a member of the Winnipeg Police Service. We're going to talk to them about why police might decline to help someone to get their stolen bike back if they do find it online, and what they're focused on now and what their greatest worries are. Also, some more ideas about how you can keep your bike safe.
I'm Suresh Das. I've spent my career writing about the local favorites that make Canada's food scene truly unique. I bit into a chili. Woo! From vibrant street food to comforting traditional dishes.
The most important ingredients in jollof rice, love.
To innovative, personal twists. Butter chicken lasagna.
Butter chicken lasagna. That's what made it all happen.
I believe every bite tells a story. Now, I want to share those stories with you.
New series Locals Welcome with Suresh Das. Watch free on CBC Gem.
It is 7:25 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for joining us. It is Monday morning. It's calm. It's -5 in the city of Winnipeg. It's misty. And let's talk about sports. Scott Regehr joins us now. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
So I'm wearing my Bomber jersey just because it's Grey Cup week. We're hosting the Grey Cup. I know we're not in it, but I thought I'd rep a little.
Well, yeah, sure. And I mean, one prairie team's like another, right? So, so to have the riders in there.
Is it?
It's just, no, not buying what I'm selling.
Well, I didn't say I was cheering for Saskatchewan, but I am cheering for Saskatchewan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I will stop short of putting a watermelon on my head, but yes. Okay. I don't want to talk about football, though. I want to talk about the Jets because it wasn't such a great Sunday for them yesterday.
No, a 4-1 loss to Anaheim, the third loss in a row for Winnipeg, who were coming off of defeats against LA and San Jose last week. Although currently in a playoff position, it's been a bit of a middling start to the season for Winnipeg, especially when compared against last year, where they won 14 of the first 15 games. Head coach Scott Arniel was asked what the reason is for the team's recent run of form.
The idea is to build. It's to build, shift to shift, period to period, and we just haven't done enough of that this year. And in the last stretch here, these 3 games out in a row, there hasn't been enough consistency. It's a mindset. It's outworking the opposition. It's making the right decisions. Then the last part of it is execution. Our execution at times wasn't what we needed it to be.
Yeah, lack of execution is certainly part of it. The Jets have only averaged a goal a game so far in November, but some good news out of the loss yesterday. Cole Perfetti made his season debut. The winger has been dealing with a high ankle sprain sustained in the preseason, so hopefully Cole's presence will help. The Jets continue their road trip tomorrow in Vancouver against the Canucks.
Let's talk baseball. There are developments in a gambling scandal that's rocked the sport.
Yeah, Cleveland Guardians players Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, Marcy, have been indicted over an alleged scheme to rig pitches during games. Prosecutors believe Ortiz was paid $5,000 for throwing an intentional ball twice in contests back in June. Clase, a 3-time All-Star, is alleged to have facilitated the rigged pitches alongside gamblers back in their home country, the Dominican Republic. Bettors on baseball can gamble on whether individual pitches will be balls or strikes, and sports lawyer Dan Luss says that's a major part of the issue.
The problem is that these bets are occurring with micro props, one player doing one thing that doesn't involve coordinated team activity. And it's going to take one of these major sports to lay down the hammer on a particular actor and to show that this technological platform, this suspicious betting patterns, they'll catch anything. Maybe this is the example that they found someone with their hand caught in the cookie jar and they could set that example. But until that happens, I don't think players got the message at this point.
Ortiz and Clase could face up to 65 years in prison if they're found guilty. This news is the latest in what some are calling, Marcy, a U.S. sports betting crisis. In the NBA, Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups was recently arrested in connection with a mafia-run poker operation, while Miami Heat star Terry Rozier has been accused of taking part in a scheme to manipulate games as well. So you can read more on this story up on our CBC website this morning.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's finish with footy. A championship was on the line yesterday in Ottawa.
Yeah, the championship awarded to the best team in the Canadian Premier League. Hosts Atletico Ottawa weren't just up against Calgary's Cavalry FC for the honor yesterday. They were up against the elements. A snowstorm made the pitch look more like an ice rink, with plows making the sidelines and penalty boxes visible, but that's about it. An orange ball did help, especially on this play just before halftime.
Anyone's to claim in the air. Bicycle! Oh my God, the most incredible goal in CPL history!
David Rodriguez defying the slippery conditions, swinging his boot over his head and rocketing a bicycle kick off of the underside of the crossbar and into the net. It was one of 2 goals for the Mexican striker and enough for Ottawa to win the CPL title. Meanwhile, we'll know who will face Vancouver in the Northern Super League's championship game by the end of today. AFC Toronto hosts Montreal and already holds a 2-0 lead after the first leg. The teams were meant to play yesterday, but with the weather, they thought the better of it. Women proving again how wise they are. By the way, Desiree Scott, what a wonderful career, came to an end over the weekend with her team, Ottawa, losing to the Vancouver Rice.
Oh, thanks for adding that in. I appreciate it. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yep.
Live with Sports, it's Scott Reguera on CBC. Still ahead, we're going to find out how the love for a Canadian coffee chain, Robbins, has hatched a growing nest of collectibles. That's after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, a little chilly. It's -5, a little foggy too. We're going to be left with a mostly cloudy day, a strong south wind, and a high this afternoon of 1. A UK woman is looking for compensation after a Manitoba cemetery lost her father's remains. Elizabeth Patrick wanted to move her father, a World War II vet, from Green Acres Cemetery in Winnipeg to a veteran cemetery in Ontario. When the grave was excavated, the body wasn't there. Now the company that owns the cemetery, Service Corporation International, or SCI, says it's not liable for the missing body.
They did ask for a counteroffer, which we presented in October, and their position now is that they did not own Green Acres Cemetery in 1973, therefore they are not responsible.
Sergeant Gordon Patrick was a glider pilot for the United Kingdom's Royal Air Force during the Second World War, but died in Winnipeg in his later years. His daughter hopes to get a settlement from SCI. The money would cover the costs of getting her father a veteran's headstone in the Field of Honour in Ontario, next to her son's grave, who was also a veteran. A Winnipeg defense lawyer is struggling to review dozens of historical cases involving 4 disgraced Winnipeg police officers. On Friday, Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty to a number of charges and now faces a sentence behind bars. Last month, the Manitoba Prosecution Service asked several defense lawyers to review old files involving Bostock and 3 other officers who still face charges. Brett Gladstone says he has a stack of around 80 to 100 of those cases.
It's a pretty gargantuan task to be asked to do for free with no support when you're already fully booked trying to help as many people in a day as you possibly can. Where am I at? I'm scratching the surface.
Legal Aid says they will fund appeals from lawyers who believe there may have been a miscarriage of justice. Gladstone says his small staff don't quite know what they're looking for, and if they find something, it'll be tough to track people down from a decade ago. A Winnipeg outreach group is desperate for warm clothes. Morgan's Warriors goes out walking to help people around Maine and Higgins several times a week. Co-founder Melissa Robinson says people are not prepared for these colder temperatures. Her group went out on Thursday with hats and mitts and ran into a young woman who couldn't get up from the sidewalk.
Her hands were so red, she couldn't feel them anymore. You know, like this is their scary reality. You know, we as people that live in homes take so much, you know, for granted.
Robinson says the group spent more than $2,000 buying warm gear to give to people in need, but she will be glad to accept coats, hoodies, toques, mitts, wool socks, and boots at Thunderbird House. Main Street Project is also looking for donations of warm clothes. The Philippines is assessing damage left by Typhoon Feng Wong. People being let off a large rescue truck. Some had to be saved from the roofs of their flooded homes. Others watched flash floods and landslides destroy their houses. Officials say at least 4 people are dead. More than 1 million are displaced. Feng Wong hit the northern Philippines as a super typhoon yesterday. Well, talk about making a big entrance. Military helicopter arriving at the Forks. Members of the Canadian Armed Forces rappelling out carrying the Grey Cup. And with that, a week of festivities has kicked off leading up to the CFL's championship game on Sunday. Winnipeg Football Club President and CEO Wade Miller says Winnipeg's looking forward to showing all the rest of Canada everything it has to offer.
It's going to be a great opportunity for our city and province, and hosting large events like this benefits the city and province financially, and also the energy and excitement for everyone to come be a part of all the festival events during the week and celebrate Canada's biggest social.
The province estimates the Grey Cup and other festivities during the week will generate to $90 million in economic activity in the province. The Montreal Alouettes and Saskatchewan Roughriders square off in that big game at Princess Auto Stadium on Sunday. Well, 600 career points.
Connor in the slump, scores!
Kyle Connor in the second period on TSN. He joins Ilya Kovalchuk, Blake Wheeler, and Mark Scheifele as the only Jets players to reach the 600-point milestone in franchise history. Even with that goal, Winnipeg loses 4-1 to Anaheim. Coach Scott Arniel says his team didn't make the most out of California.
The idea is to build. It's to build, shift to shift, period to period, and we just haven't done enough of that this year. And in the last stretch here, these 3 games out in a row, there hasn't been enough consistency doing that, and that's just something that we've talked about. And it's a mindset. It's outworking the opposition. It's making the right decisions. Then the last part of it is execution. Our execution tonight at times wasn't what we needed it to be.
Well, Winnipeg's Western road trip continues, heading to Vancouver for a late game, 9 o'clock Tuesday night. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heath.
Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news center. And now Abby's got your regional forecast.
Yeah, we're still seeing patchy, foggy conditions in the south, while a mix of cloud and flurries through parts of northern Manitoba this morning. Though we're going to see more like a mix of cloudy conditions once that sweeps off, and then some winds in the southern parts of the province this morning. Winnipeg right now -5. It's still foggy in some parts of the city. That should clear as you get into the morning before you see the skies turn to mainly cloudy conditions with winds coming from the south, high around +1 today. The Pembina Valley region around Morden, we're seeing -7, also misty there. It's going to get cloudy and windy today. We'll see high around +1. Brandon, you're sitting at -9 and mostly cloudy at this time. Expecting some breezy conditions with a few sunny breaks later. You warm up to about +4. Across the Parkland region around Dauphin, we're looking at -5. It's turning cloudy already with some mild southwest winds pushing your highs to +5. Gimli, you're sitting at -6 with some lingering fog. That should clear, and then you see cloudy conditions and breezy conditions through the day with highs around 1. In the powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at -1 at this time. Cloudy conditions. There's a good chance of afternoon flurries and a touch of freezing rain coming your way later. You only warm up to 0 later today. Further north in Churchill, we're looking at -3 at this time. Snow on its way. That should arrive around midday, and then you see temperatures rising to near 0 for you today. While further north in Churchill, we're looking at -10 and partly cloudy. It's going to be sunny to start with, and then we'll see some snow developing later in the day. Your highs will be near -2. Churchill is expecting about 2 centimeters of snow once the system comes that way. So it's going to be cloudy with some wind, mild patches of fog. That should clear, and then a few snowy spots up north. But right now, Winnipeg, misty and -5.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, you have a couple things to say about the roadways, eh?
Yes, just got a call from Marie, who was driving westbound Logan, and she said there's a stalled car at Sherbrooke on westbound Logan, and the right lane, the curb lane there, and it's got traffic backed up all the way to Salters. So really slow going on westbound Logan. this morning. Thanks for that call, Marie. Other than that, though, the highways, there might be some spots with poor visibility, maybe a little slippery, particularly around Lynn Lake and Leaf Rapids, according to Manitoba 511. And also might be some poor visibility on the highways, pretty much right around Winnipeg this morning. But other than that, though, if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, right now, while you're listening, you might be having a cup of coffee. A morning cup of joe is more, though, than a jolt of caffeine for one Winnipeg man. It's about family, friends, and memories of time spent together at a Canadian coffee chain. Ronald George Moore has been brewing up nostalgia by collecting memorabilia from Robin's Donuts. CBC Manitoba's community reporter, Shanley Vidal, paid him a visit.
My name is Ronald George Moore, and welcome to the Robin's Nest. I started collecting the coffee cans. I just didn't want to throw them away. I would just keep the box that a dozen donuts would come in. Then I got a thermos, and I think it just kind of steamrolled after that.
A donut's not a donut unless it's Robin's.
There are things around that you would think that I may have stolen, but you got to remember, these Robins are closing down, so you're going to find some at like auctions, Kijiji, and simply me just asking. Employees and managers have given me like old hats.
A room in Moore's Winnipeg home is neatly adorned with memorabilia from Robin's Donuts. There's posters, figurines, mugs, and a few unusual items.
This is a Robin's Donuts decanter. This little Robin's Donuts rolling pin. It's incredible. I remember my dad having one of these Robin's mugs attached to, the dash of his station wagon. The St. Mary's location had kind of a light fixture. This is pretty cool because it was something I always like, oh, that'd be really cool to add to the collection. And then just out of fate, I have a piece of it. They gave me a Sip to Win poster. And I also love it when they take the mascot and they put him in different positions, like just with the wingspan open, Robbie Robbins. I got a whole whack of mugs, and this is a really cool one because for a while, Robin's Donuts was doing a collaboration with Campbell's Soup. So you get the Campbell's Soup kids on this side.
Moore's love of Robin's began when he was a kid. He'd go every week after church with his family.
So people ask me, why do you love Robin's? I'm like, well, it's the coffee. They have not changed their beans in 50 years.
For his last birthday, he was presented with a birthday cake that had the Robin's mascot, Robbie Robin, except the face was replaced with that of Moore when he was 10 years old.
My kids did that for my birthday. My fiance has a lot of fun with it.
It was Moore's fiance that gifted him his greatest Robin's treasure, a neon sign with the lights broken off.
It used to say muffins and more. That's what I love about Robin's. It just reminds me of growing up in this city and just friends and family.
There's only a handful of Robins left in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, Gimli, and the Pas. The franchise started 50 years ago in Thunder Bay, and Moore was there to celebrate that milestone. Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Stream and just watch that item, by the way, because that guy's basement is full of Robin's memorabilia. I shouldn't say basement, maybe it's just a room in the house, but besides the sign, all those mugs, that one that he was describing stuck to the dash of his dad's car, I think my dad might have had one of those. It was that plastic one. It was like sort of a creamy color with the telltale orange and brown Robins. And then some of the ads where I forgot that the mascot, somebody would dress up as the mascot with real plumes and feathers in those Robins ads, looking back. Thanks to CBC Manitoba's community reporter Shanley Vidal, but also videographer Jason Emsom for bringing us that this morning.
At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, Canadians pause to reflect and remember for those who served, for those who fought, for those who died, and for those who returned home. On November 11th, live from the National War Memorial in Ottawa, join CBC News for special coverage of the Remembrance Day ceremony on CBC and local streaming channels.
Just some traffic updates here on your Monday morning at 7:42 a.m. Margaret called us to say northbound Waverly at Bison Drive. There's a stalled car now in the left lane. So there's backups just starting there. That's northbound Waverly at Bison Drive. And then Marie also said there's this stalled car, as Corey mentioned, on westbound Logan at Sherbrooke in the right lane. And backups are there all the way to Salter. So just a couple of spots to watch for. Otherwise, the ring of visibility is not great around the perimeter. That is because of the low-lying fog. And then you could also have some patchy spots up around the highways on Lynn Lake and Leaf Rapids. 788-3093 with any updates. And thanks to Margaret and Marie who gave us a call. We have a bit of music next on the program from the Slow Leaves, Winnipeg Slow Leaves. This is from their latest album. It's called Happy All the Time.
I got a friend, she won't compromise. When I look down into those bedroom eyes, I can't help but see the worst in me. And then I roll onto my side. We just need to make a getaway. So we build ourselves a brand new jail. Now I'm inside with nothing left to say. Every word just seems to fail. Don't make plans, it's already raining. I got a bed we can stay in. I'm gonna bet we can make some sunshine. Don't say that you want me only. Everybody gets lonely. Who would want to be happy all the time? I got a friend, she's good company. Runs a blade across my naked body. She says I could use a lobotomy. Lose the part that wants to try. We were in a race that will never win. And one day I know we'll cross that line. Then we'll talk about what could have been. But we all run out of time. Don't make plans, it's already raining. I got a bed we can stay in. I'm gonna bet we can make some sunshine. Don't say that you want me only. Everybody gets lonely. Who would wanna be happy? Don't make plans, it's already raining. I got a bed we can stay in. I'm gonna bet we can make some sunshine. Don't say that you wanna be only. Everybody gets lonely. Who would wanna be happy? Happy all the time.
Happy all the time. That is Winnipeg Slow Leaves.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca. We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Still ahead in the program after 8 o'clock, the Winnipeg Police's bust of a suspected bicycle chop shop in a Point Douglas encampment led to 2 arrests. This was back in August. But what has happened since? Police will talk to us this morning about what else they're looking at when it comes to bike theft in the city, and also why it is that when you call in, as we had a guest on earlier this half hour that said she saw her bike on Marketplace and knew it was her bike. When she called police, they said they couldn't help in that individual case. So we're going to have get into all those details after 8 o'clock. Right now, though, speaking of police, to the big story of the day, and a warning that some of the allegations in our next story may be disturbing for some listeners. On Friday, we learned that veteran police officer Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including breach of trust, theft, and offering an indignity to human remains. He has been with Winnipeg's police service for more than 20 years. He's now facing 2 years of prison time. As you've been hearing in the news, court documents reveal how between 2016 and 2024, so this is 8 years on the job, Bostock used his position as an officer to fix traffic tickets in exchange for gifts like whiskey and gift cards. He's accused of looking up confidential information. He's accused of taking a cell phone photo of a partially naked dead woman and sharing it with other officers while on duty. All of this happened over a span, as I mentioned, of at least 8 years. When Bostock was initially charged in August, Winnipeg Police Chief Gene Bowers vowed to take steps regarding regaining public trust.
The new Police Services Act established a uniform code of conduct for all police officers in Manitoba, and to have a requirement to publish disciplinary actions taken with respect to police misconduct. Trust must be earned. We can't ask for trust. We have to earn it through our actions.
That was Winnipeg Police Chief Gene Bowers speaking to reporters August 7th. Now, Mayor Scott Gillingham gave comment to CBC's Gavin Axelrod. He thinks Winnipeggers will have more trust in the police because Bowers called out Bostock's behavior. By the way, we did request a full interview with our Winnipeg Police Chief and with the Mayor this morning. Both were declined. Cash Heed is with us. He is former chief of West Vancouver's Police Department. He's a former Solicitor General in British Columbia. He's now a city councillor in Richmond, BC, and he joins us via Zoom. Hi there.
Good morning.
So now that we've learned some more details here, what do you make of this case? How rare are cases like this is the question I actually want to ask.
They're quite rare, but they're certainly very concerning to the public, very concerning to many police officers that are serving the public the way they should in a professional manner each and every day. So it is something that we should be concerned about. It's something that Winnipeg police will have to go. They'll have to gain the trust of the public back, regardless of what changes have been made, as the chief of police had mentioned there. So it's going to be a time of turbulence, not only within the police department, but certainly the public trust in the Winnipeg Police Service.
Obviously, as I mentioned, Bostock pled guilty on Friday. So some people might look at this and wonder if there's a way to understand if this is an isolated incident or a signal of something deeper in our Winnipeg Police Service.
Well, Winnipeg Police Service has not been without controversy over the years. And I think, like many police agencies, when these things happen, it's something that we have to think about again. We have to look at how we vetted this particular officer, whether integrity tests were in place, whether we did the polygraph, the psychological testing is required, because police agencies have to do whatever they can to make sure that they have the right people within their ranks. For someone like this to be rogue for such a period of time, and given the fact that relatively short career of 20 years is concerning, and I think we're going to have to, or Winnipeg Police Service is certainly going to have to delve into this to make sure that they could have done everything they possibly could have to prevent this. And look at this clearly. What you know and what I have read with respect to this is just an agreement on a state of facts that have gone forward between Crown and Defense. There's probably many, many more that weren't agreed to put forward as a statement of facts. So we don't know the totality of this. We don't know what happened to the other police officers that were with him during the activities that he partook in. We're not sure what happened to those other police officers that were given gifts to turn a blind eye to something. You know, those allegations that you look at with the information that's available, there's a lot more that, in my opinion, that needs to be done to make sure that those that were accessory to the behavior of this individual are dealt with in a significant fashion to deter this activity from occurring as the Winnipeg Police Service goes forward serving the public.
It was interesting because you said we don't know how he was vetted, but when you think if this is over at least a period of 8 years, which we understand and know that to be fact, and you talk about preventing this, does some of the idea of preventing this come not just at the vetting process, but at how we keep watch within the service over periods of time? What can be put in place in police systems to maintain checking on officers?
Well, let me tell you, it's not only the vetting process of how we recruit, hire, and train these people, it's how we supervise them and how we discipline them if, in fact, that something untoward does happen at the outset to deter that activity. A lot is looked at. Supervisory actions are certainly the most prevalent that we need to look at, but you could do integrity tests where, in fact, we know police agencies, and this may happen, we may not even know it, will do setups where, in fact, for example, in police agencies that I'm aware of, they'll have a car break-in, a wallet will be in the car, there'll be some money in the car, and they'll have cameras set up to see what happened. Now, it appears they did some type of integrity after the fact to gather evidence here, but these are testing that has to be done continually. But the significant factor that's going to prevent this from perpetuating throughout an organization into some type of corruption is the fact we have to have proper supervisory people in place, and we certainly have to have discipline to deter this activity. This will be something that I'm hoping will be looked at within the Winnipeg Police Service, and not just look at Mr. Boxstock as an individual and we got the bad apple and the rest are fine. No, it has to be a continual insurance of credibility within the police agency.
So let me read what Winnipeg Police Chief Bowers did vow to do. He vowed to amend the Police Services Act, this is part of what he said, and to publish disciplinary action in respect to police misconduct. Is that sufficient to start rebuilding public trust? And why aren't we publishing that anyway?
No, we should be publishing. We should be as transparent as we can with respect to that. But that is still not going to deter the people from being involved in the activity. There's so much more that has to be done by our police leaders to ensure we have integrity within our police organization. So that's just one aspect of it. What you want to do is you want to prevent this behavior from finding its way into your police service, into any of the public services to begin with. And I think that is paramount here. And if you do identify, you've got to make sure you do whatever you can to deal with it and ensure that whatever fracture there was that allowed this to continue is dealt with almost immediately, because trust in police is paramount for us to live and work and play in a civil society. And we certainly don't want to go down the road of having rogues like this within our services, especially when the men and women are out there each and every shift serving in a very professional manner. And that's what we want. But those that do go astray need to be dealt with forthwith, and you've got to prevent it from happening again.
I know we'll speak again about this as it unfolds. Thank you very much, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
That's Cash Heed. He's the former chief of the West Vancouver Police Department, former Solicitor General in British Columbia, now a city councillor in Richmond, BC. He joined us via Zoom. Now, Bostock still faces federal drug charges. He pleaded guilty Friday in the Manitoba Court of King's Bench to theft of under $5,000, trying to obstruct justice, breach of trust, and offering an indignity to human remains. As I mentioned, Winnipeg Police Chief Gene Bowers tells CBC Bostock's current status remains suspended without pay. In a statement, he said there's no place for individuals. Pardon me, I'm going to just read the quote. There's no place for individuals like this within our organization, and we're taking our appropriate actions under the regulation. Bostock still faces charges that have not been dealt with. Other officers also face charges. When these matters have concluded in court, I will have more to say. unquote. You can read more at cbc.ca/Manitoba. And once again, just to reiterate, we did request an interview with Chief Bowers, Mayor Gillingham, and Acting Police Board Chair Colleen Mayer. All were denied, but we did get a comment from Scott Gillingham, our mayor, through one of our reporters over the weekend. In a conversation with CBC's Gavin Axelrod, he said he thinks Winnipeggers will have more trust in police because Bowers called out Bostock's behavior. If you want to weigh in on the way forward, 204-788-3205. Here's Heather with headlines.
A UK woman is looking for compensation after a Manitoba cemetery lost her father's remains. Elizabeth Patrick wanted to move her father, a World War II vet, from Green Acres in Winnipeg to a veteran cemetery in Ontario. But when the grave was excavated, the body wasn't there. And as temperatures drop, Winnipeg outreach groups and shelters are in desperate need of warm clothes. Morgan's Warriors does outreach in downtown Winnipeg. Co-founder Melissa Robinson says people who are homeless or who have been living in encampments aren't prepared for these cold temperatures. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Still ahead, if you're lucky enough to track down your stolen bike on a selling platform, might be harder than you think to catch the thief red-handed or to get accountability. We'll talk to the Winnipeg Police Inspector, one of them, about that and the complicated process of proving a bike was actually stolen. Also, we're going to hear more about their concerns about bicycle chop shops. So we're turning our attention to that coming up after 8 o'clock. Northbound Waverley at Bison Drive, stalled car left lane, that's an issue. Also stalled car westbound Logan at Sherbrooke causing issue. 788-3093.
On cue. Alex Cuba is a Grammy Award-winning artist known for his joyful, happy music. But on his new album, Alex is tapping into the sorrow and pain of his past. Alex will be here to tell you about the new record, finding beauty in that pain, and the gratitude he feels for his ancestors.
Q
with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The New Yorker writer Susan Orlean finds stories everywhere. She's written about everything from orchid theft to the life of a 10-year-old boy. Now she's writing about her own sometimes wild life. My onstage interview with Susan Orlean from the Vancouver Writers' Fest on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The U.S. government shutdown could be coming to an end. A shift in the Democratic Party has opened the door. Senators voted late last night to move ahead with a plan that would end the shutdown in a matter of days. A bloc of Democrats have broken rank and appear ready to bend on health care. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. Willie, what can you tell us about these latest developments?
So negotiations between Senate Republicans and a handful of Democrats really ramped up over the weekend, and the two sides reached a breakthrough late yesterday. The Democrats aren't getting what they wanted, but Senate Majority Leader John Thune pledged to hold a vote on American Care Act subsidies by mid-December. The legislation also promises to reverse federal layoffs made during the shutdown, a key Democratic sticking point in recent days, and it will fund the federal SNAP program or food stamps through the fiscal year, and the government through January 30th. These changes have cleaved Senate Democrats in two, with leadership still holding firm and voting against the procedural motion. Senator Jeanne Shaheen is one of the 8 Democrats who signed off. She says it's the best deal that they were going to get.
I understand that not all of my Democratic colleagues are satisfied with this agreement, but waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome. It would only mean more harm for families in New Hampshire and all across the country.
So what is next?
So this was the first of several steps before the government can reopen. The legislation will now wind its way through Congress, the Senate will have to vote on it, and then the House of Representatives. And if passed, President Donald Trump will then have to sign off. It is already by far the longest shutdown in U.S. history, and it could be days before it officially ends. Thousands of federal workers have been furloughed. Many have been forced to work without pay over the last nearly 6 weeks. Now, a part of this deal would provide back pay for those workers, but it's unclear how long it will take for those funds to roll out.
All right. Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump has pardoned his former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. He also pardoned his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Both men are among a group of people accused of backing Republican attempts to overturn the 2020 election. But presidential pardons only apply to federal crimes, and none of Trump's allies have been charged in a federal case. This follows the pardons for the hundreds of people involved in the insurrection in the U.S. Capitol in 2021. There is trouble at Britain's public broadcaster and allegations of bias. A leaked internal review has accused the BBC of distorting a clip of U.S. President Donald Trump, and Trump is threatening legal action. In response, last night, Tim Davie, the head of the BBC, quit. So did the head of its news department. Chris Brown has more from London.
Thank you all. Just before the last U.S. presidential election, the BBC program Panorama ran this clip of Donald Trump speaking to supporters before the storming of the Capitol in 2021.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight.
Only Trump didn't actually say those words in that way. They were from different parts of the same speech. Last week, the Telegraph newspaper leaked an internal BBC review that concluded the edit distorted what Trump said. It added there were other far-reaching problems of bias in the network's news coverage. It questioned the way the BBC's Arabic service covered the Gaza war and how the corporation dealt with transgender issues. In his resignation statement, Director General Tim Davie said he was taking responsibility for the mistakes. Roger Mosey is a former head of BBC News.
But the BBC was slow to respond to the latest allegations, and I think they were flat-footed.
The BBC's supporters accuse Britain's political right of being on a witch hunt against the corporation, and in her resignation statement, BBC head of news Deborah Turness also pushed back against the criticisms, saying while mistakes were made, the accusation that the broadcaster is institutionally biased is wrong. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is launching his Buy Canadian policy later today in New Brunswick. It's designed to make sure federal spending supports Canadian jobs and industries first. The policy applies to government contractors working on major defense and construction projects, and it starts by focusing on Canadian steel and softwood lumber. There are some grim environmental realities to confront this week at the COP30 summit. The UN's annual climate summit opens today, and it comes as scientists say the Earth is warming. The rising temperatures have outpaced efforts to reduce fossil fuel pollution. CBC's international climate correspondent Susan Ormiston is in Belém, Brazil for the summit. And Susan, there have been 30 years of these climate conferences. How is this one different?
Well, it's in the Amazon, so it's not a glittering metropolis like Dubai 2 years ago. And the political climate has really worsened over the last year, not to mention the changing climate. Delegates are sleeping here on cruise ships. Brazil's president is overnighting on a luxury boat in the river as well. And an indigenous boat arrived late Sunday with dozens of leaders. They traveled 25 days on rivers from a glacier in the Andes to here in the Amazon, and their main goal is demanding a greater say in how their territories are managed. Here's a spokesperson.
The most important thing is the indigenous young people are in the front lines, protecting the rivers, protecting the forest, protecting the jungle. So for me, this is the hope. This is the time for the indigenous youth.
A report last week said in the 1/3 of the Amazon rainforest occupied by indigenous communities, about 17% of those spaces are facing threats from oil and gas drilling, mining, and logging concessions.
So what is on the agenda for COP30?
In summary, heat, money, and motivation. I mean, 10 years after Paris, the world has missed its goal to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So how will countries dial up commitments to turn down the heat? Also money. Last year, countries agreed to pay $300 billion a year to countries at the worst end of climate damages, but only a fraction of that has come in. And motivation. The U.S., it's not here as an official delegation. And with the president of the U.S. calling climate change a hoax, how are countries going to work together to solve the big challenges, including making good on a promise 2 years ago to transition away from oil and gas when oil production here in Brazil and in Canada has reached record highs?
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Susan Ormiston reporting from Belém, Brazil. Brazilian security officers raided parts of Rio de Janeiro just weeks before this COP30 summit. 117 people were killed. When prosecutors justified the raid, they put forward the names of 69 suspects. The full police report on that operation has now been shared with Brazil's Supreme Court. It was reviewed by Reuters news agency, and it shows none of those 69 suspects were among those killed by police. Neither were any senior leaders of the Commando Vermelho gang, the target of the raid. A new study suggests young people in some of the world's wealthiest nations are becoming less open to having women in leadership. But one country appears to be bucking that trend, Italy. Megan Williams has more from Rome.
Younger people are showing less progressive views than their parents and even grandparents when it comes to women in leadership, at least in Canada, the US, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. Michelle Harris heads the Varian Group, which has carried out the research for the Reykjavik Index for Leadership since 2018. It measures how women and men are viewed as leaders across 23 economic sectors. She says the 18 to 34 age group is sharply divided, with some highly progressive pockets, young men in particular nostalgic for more traditional roles. She says growing anxiety about the economy and the specter of global conflict is also shaping attitudes, especially among young men.
Some of that gets wrapped up in feelings of things being done that constrains their roles as men.
Feelings made worse by extremist influencers.
Online targeting of young men from bad actors.
Italy, though, stands apart, the only G7 country where younger people are more open than older generations to female leaders. Harrison says that may reflect the impact of Italy's first female prime minister, or simply a country catching up, with overall acceptance of female leaders still among the lowest in the G7.
Italy was not so much part of that second wave of feminism.
68% of young Canadians support female leadership, and 75% of those over age 55, putting Canada at the top of the G7. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
That is World Report for this hour. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. Hello, Winnipeg, and hello to visitors who are here for the Grey Cup. The teams will land later today, and I already saw some out-of-town license plates this weekend. Welcome. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is CBC. We are below zero this morning, and we're not going to warm up all that much today. And some low-lying fog and mist out there is causing some challenges with visibility. So Corey's in with the commute details in just a moment. This half hour on the program, we have a feature interview with an inspector from the Winnipeg Police Service. The police's bust of a suspected bicycle chop shop in Point Douglas at an encampment there did lead to 2 arrests back in August. So we're going to get an update on what's happened since, on where police are concerned regarding stolen bicycle activities in Winnipeg. And also, what do you do if your bike is stolen and you see it on a secondhand selling marketplace, for example? So we're going to find out more about that. And we'll also find out why sometimes police can't do much about that, even though you feel like it should be cut and dry. There's my bike. I know it's my bike. So that's this half hour. Right now, Heather Wells is in with other news headlines and other stories. Good morning.
Good morning. A Winnipeg defense lawyer is struggling to review dozens of historical cases involving 4 disgraced police officers. Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty to a number of charges on Friday and faces a sentence behind bars. Last month, the Manitoba Prosecution Service asked several defense lawyers to review old files involving Bostock and 3 other officers who still face charges. Brett Gladstone says it is a gargantuan task. A woman whose father's grave was found empty says the cemetery isn't taking responsibility for the missing body. Elizabeth Patrick wanted to move her father, a World War II veteran, from Green Acres in Winnipeg to a veterans cemetery in Ontario. Service Corporation International owns Green Acres and says it's not liable for the missing remains. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening in the weather. I mentioned it's going to stay pretty chilly today, Abby.
Yeah,
pretty chilly, and we're seeing mainly cloudy conditions for now. Some foggy conditions still hanging around this morning down south, while up north we're looking at more of a mix of clouds and light snow. Through the day, winds will pick up, so it's maybe feeling chilly before things warmer, but overall it's going to be a cool gusty start to the week. Winnipeg -5 right now. Those misty conditions clearing, and then it's going to stay mainly cloudy as those southerly winds trending through the day. We warm up to around +1 later.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, you got a couple things you're keeping track of, in the commute?
Yeah, a couple stalled cars causing some issues out there. The most recent one I heard was from Margaret, who said there's a stalled car northbound Waverly just before Bison Drive in the left-hand lane. The backups were just building as she was calling, so might still be an issue for folks there. As well, Marie called westbound Logan at Sherbrooke. There's a stalled car in the curb lane. And that was backed up all the way to Salter. May still be an issue as well. That was probably about an hour ago she called, so maybe that's clear, maybe not. And finally, we actually got a tip on the YouTube comments today from Bashir, who says that Bison Drive is really slow approaching U of M because there's actually some kind of some communications work actually happening in the left turning lane right outside kind of the MPI Superstore area there. And that's actually, according to the city, is expected to be happening until November 24th. So it might be a little bit more slow going Bison Drive as you're heading towards U of M there. If you see anything else though going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. We'd love to hear from you for any updates you got. 204-788-3093.
Well, Winnipeg police say that they have their eyes right now on at least 2 other possible bike chop shops in our city. You might recall, as I mentioned, this summer, Winnipeg police obtained a search warrant for a structure in an encampment in Point Douglas that was allegedly operating a bicycle chop shop there. Now, that search led to the seizure of 5 complete bikes, 50 frames, 77 tires, and 53 rims. 2 men were arrested and later charged with possession of property obtained by crime under $5,000. We wanted an update on that case and just to talk about stolen bikes. Inspector Helen Peters is a divisional commander at the Winnipeg Police Service. I spoke to her Friday after the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So in the aftermath of the Point Douglas chop shop operation, what was the actual aftermath? What happened after that?
Well, thankfully, the matter is actually now before the courts because charges were laid. And in that instance, we were able to identify certain items that were seized as a relation to that investigation as being reported as stolen. So for us, that investigation and those actions are a success story to date. And we wait to see what happens as a result of that matter being brought before the courts.
So when you think of the 5 complete bikes and all the parts I mentioned that were retrieved, you were able to know that they were stolen. Why?
So the investigation process really asks us to identify or confirm that an item has been stolen before we're able to even contemplate the charge of theft or even possess stolen goods obtained by crime. And so we will look for serial numbers or identifying markers that we can search our records database and retrieve a police report number where an owner of an item that has been stolen has reached out to us and reported that to us. So when in that moment, when we're seizing all of that property, and it was a substantial amount of property that we seized from that site, we have to go through each individual item to see if we have a corresponding police report number that identifies that item as stolen.
If you don't have that, what happens to your investigation?
It stalls. And out of all the items that we seized in that investigation, and again, it's hard to talk about it expansively at this time because it's before the court, we were able to identify certain items as stolen. But in some other instances, we haven't been able to do that. And investigations have been stalled because of our inability to find reports that identify those items as stolen.
Given the circumstances, what do you say to someone who feels like it's futile to report a stolen bike to the police, just because when you look back, it feels like it's so hard to get your property back?
Well, what I want the public to know is that we actually retrieve and locate stolen property far more regularly than I think the community is aware of. And we do that through these criminal investigations, whether it be search warrants or locating abandoned stolen property or a person in a possession of a stolen property committing another criminal offense. And we do our very best to identify it and even return it to the owner. And what I want the public to realize is that, especially in the case of bicycles, it's more than just about the stolen item. It's about what's happening to those bicycles after they're stolen. We do know, and we've found evidence that stolen bikes and their parts are being taken apart and turned into items that can be used as weapons. Even the tubes of bicycle frames, some of them are just the right size that they can be turned into an item that can be used as a firearm, because the tube casing itself is the right size to hold a shotgun shell. And so there's not only the act of theft, but there's also a much greater issue of how these bicycle parts are being repurposed and turned into a weapon and an item that can really inflict harm on another person. And so there's a real continuum of public safety here that we would like to be able to address, but we can only do so with the community's help. And it really starts at the very front end of people giving us the information we need to be able to move these criminal investigations along.
How much can you share with us about how big of a problem this is? I've cited one case, but how concerned are you about these parts being stolen?
We've located, in the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple more reports of chop shops that were given to us. And so we've entered into criminal investigations. On one site, we retrieved 15 bicycle frames, none of which we were able to identify as stolen. And so our investigation at this moment is stalled. More recently, we retrieved 30 bicycle frames from another location. Of those 30 bicycle frames, only 9 of them had their serial numbers intact. But again, none of the 9 serial numbers we were able to identify had ever been reported stolen to us. And of course, the totality of all of this suggests that there is criminal activity taking place, and certainly is something that we would like to pursue and follow up further. But the lack of us being able to identify those items as stolen really slows down our investigation and stalls it.
Given the experience of the police with the suspected bike chop shop in Point Douglas, how likely is it that you're going to go into other encampments, maybe, because this was attached to an encampment right around that area, and retrieve suspected stolen bikes and parts?
I don't think it matters where the criminal act is taking place, whether it's on public property or somebody's private property. If something is reported to us in relation to criminal activity, we as police officers, we're going to investigate that. We're going to take the information that's given to us, and we're going to follow the trail of information to see where it leads us. And whether we get a search warrant, whether we're able to see something because it's been abandoned on public property, or whether we find it in the possession of someone that's committing another criminal act and we're able to identify that and lay additional charges. We are receiving those reports, and so it's highly likely, and again, just the number of bicycle frames and bicycle parts that we're finding distributed amongst, specifically downtown, which is the area that I'm a command of. It is highly likely that we want to engage and take these criminal investigations as far as we possibly can.
Are you able to share with us, Inspector, the 2 other suspected chop shops that you mentioned, whether or not they are adjacent to or located around or in encampments?
Well, what I will say is these are areas on public property.
We have had bikes stolen and a problem in our city for a long time. In your experience, though, the idea of, you're talking about the chop shop and even repurposing tubes into weapons and such, how new is that in our city?
I can't really speak to that per se, how it's evolved over the year. But what I will say is I think we're seeing more and more of it. And I think we're seeing more of it in that I think this whole issue around how those bikes are being traded for cash or traded for drugs or traded or and turned into weapons is related to the drug trade. And so as we see the drug trade ebb and flow, we will see the theft of bicycles and other stolen property linked to the need to sell drugs or the desire to sell drugs to vulnerable people within our communities. And so how those items are being used to help that sale and trafficking of illegal drugs along. I think these things are all tied together, and it's no accident that we see certain behaviors spike along with those other items.
Has bike theft been attached to sort of drug trade in the past?
I think anytime any stolen property kind of ebbs and flows, we'll see it linked back to organized crime in some way, and I think it's an indicator of that. How prevalent it's been in the past, again, I can't speak to that, but all these things are always connected to each other.
How can cyclists register their bike then?
So we have, there is a public site, a public website where it's free to register your bike. It's called 529 Garage, and you can go on any website and just Google that, and a free registration form will come up. Anybody who's purchasing a bike through a specialist dealer, sometimes we find bicycles all fully in one piece, completely intact, and we'll locate that. And when we realize it might have been purchased through a specialized dealer, we'll actually reach out to that dealer if we can't find a report on it within our records. And actually the dealer has been able to connect us with the owner, and the owner's always been surprised that we've been able to locate their bike and being able to return it to them. So making sure that if you're buying it through a specialist dealer, they have that serial number on file, being aware of that. But I also want to encourage the community that if you're purchasing a bike, the first thing you should do is take some pictures of it. Take a picture of the serial number. If you choose to put an identifying marker on your bike, take a picture of that. Have all that information saved. We all have iPhones now, or some kind of phone available to a smartphone or computers where we can just easily store all that information and have that ready. And please don't hesitate if your bicycle is stolen, whether it was purchased from Canadian Tire, whether it was purchased from a specialist dealer. Please save all that information and do report it to the police. It's so simple to report now with our new online reporting system. You can just go to our website page and enter an online report and upload those photographs that you've taken, which would be an extremely useful tool for us.
We've heard from some people who say they've seen their stolen bikes pop up, like on Facebook Marketplace, for example. But when they ask police to, help me get my bike back, sometimes police are unable to help. Can you help us understand why, when it's, seems to the public cut and dry, that you might not be able to get involved at that, if someone calls you with that?
I can't speak to those individual instances that where people are reaching out in those cases, but I do know that the more information that we have, the better. And if we're able to respond in that moment, or if we have to follow up it later on as part of an investigative approach, we will do that. But never hesitate in calling us.
You at once were using in 2018. CBC reported Winnipeg police were using like a bait bike program to deter theft. People might recall this. How are bait bikes used today? Is that still something that you have to fight against this?
Bait bike is something that we consider as a tool, but the bait bike tool and the program really targets the people that are stealing the bikes. And what we know is those bikes are stolen very quickly and then traded. And that's where we see them end up within something that people are calling this chop shop type of environment, where bikes are being taken apart or repurposed, or they're exchanging parts on different bikes to make them look different, and then selling them on or trading them on for either cash or drugs. And what we're doing through the investigation into chop shops is really targeting the areas or the locations or the people that are accepting those bikes, knowing that they're likely stolen, and then retrading them or repurposing them. So bike baits target the people that might steal, but we actually want to get to the root cause. Who is accepting those bikes? Because that's what's really creating the industry around stolen bikes, and that's what we want to target.
Anything you'd like to add about this?
I don't think so. It really is an item and an issue that's concerning to the public at large. I do receive multiple reports. We take those reports from concerned citizens about what they see, areas that they think might be suspected chop shops. And so for us to really pursue those investigations, we really need the community's participation in this.
Thank you very much, Inspector Helen Peters. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Divisional Commander Inspector Helen Peters with the Winnipeg Police Service. That interview about bikes, we actually spoke on Friday, and you can register your bike for free, as mentioned, at project529.com. That's the numbers, project529.com. You can also report a stolen bike online through the Winnipeg Police website. It is now 8:28, coming up to last local newscast for our show, at least. Winds are calm out there. It's -5 in Winnipeg. We'll be around 1 degree for the day. In traffic, call us if you see any problems at 204-788-3093, and we will pass it along. It's been a pretty good morning drive. Fog affecting a couple areas. A little bit greasy out there as well. Coming up on noon, if you're listening to the local noon show here between noon and 1, then you know that the back half of that show is a call-in. And here's what it's about today. Spreading election disinformation online in this province could soon result in a fine as high as $20,000 a day. But should it? On today's call-in, they'll be talking about the NDP's new misinformation legislation, and we want to hear from you about it. So check it out and get ready to call in. That is between 12:30 and 1 during the call-in portion of Radio Noon. I always like to remind you, if you're busy over the lunch hour, but you're like, oh, I have something to add to that conversation, you can always call their listener line. And the listener line for Noon is 204-788-3797. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio, and big thanks to those who worked on the show today. Jenna Badasso, who is an associate producer, Shanley Vidal, who's our community reporter, videographer Jason Empsom, our Studio 15 crew, Corey Funk, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Marash, and our news team, Heather Wells, Jody Nicolo, and Megan Ketchison. In addition, our producers in unit, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Your 8:30 CBC News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's -5, cloudy and windy today. We are right around seasonal, a high today of 1, and we'll be warming up through the week. A woman whose father's grave was found empty says the cemetery isn't taking responsibility for the missing body. Elizabeth Patrick wanted to move her father, a World War II vet, from Green Acres Cemetery in Winnipeg to a veteran cemetery in Ontario. Service Corporation International, or SCI, owns Green Acres, but says it's not liable for the missing remains. Winnipeg lawyer Troy Harwood Jones says SCI's liability will depend on the details of the sale.
Did you buy the company? If you bought all the shares of the company, then you are the company, and you are liable for the wrongs of the company. A cemetery has to maintain accurate records with respect to the plots and with respect to the dates of death and all of the details that relate to the remains.
RCMP also used penetrating radar to search the site in June, but found nothing. Patrick hopes to receive a settlement and use the funds to pay for her father's veteran headstone and her legal fees. A Winnipeg criminal defense lawyer says his firm has been saddled with a massive workload in the wake of charges involving 4 police officers. Constable Elston Bostock pleaded guilty to a number of charges on Friday and is expected to spend at least 2 years behind bars. Last month, the Manitoba Prosecution Service sent letters to a number of defense lawyers who had cases involving Bostock and the other officers, asking them to look for any misconduct that may have resulted in a miscarriage of justice. Brett Gladstone says his firm received around 80 to 100 of those letters.
It's quite a gargantuan undertaking, and I am no bounty hunter. I do not know how to track these humans down a decade later.
Gladstone says they are triaging the most recent cases in case someone is still serving time. This just in, the Public Health Agency says Canada has lost its measles elimination status. The demotion comes as the agency says the country is experiencing a large outbreak that dates back to October of last year. It says there have been cases reported in nearly every province and in the Northwest Territories. Canada can reestablish its measles elimination status once the current strain is interrupted for at least 12 months. Well, as temperatures drop, Winnipeg outreach groups and shelters are in desperate need of warm clothes. Morgan's Warriors does outreach in downtown Winnipeg. Co-founder Melissa Robinson says the group goes out several times a week, and people who are unsheltered or who have been living in encampments aren't prepared for the cold weather. Robinson's group recently helped a young woman who was hypothermic and couldn't move to find shelter. Even though the weather will be getting warmer this week.
We know how cold Winnipeg can get in our winters, right? Minus 30, minus 40 with the wind chill. Already, people are struggling out there. And our biggest concern is, people are going to fall asleep under the influence and just not wake up.
She says people can drop off winter coats, hoodies, toques, mitts, and wool socks at Thunderbird House. Main Street Project is also looking for donations of warm winter clothes. Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney is in New Brunswick today launching his government's Buy Canadian policy. It is designed to ensure all federal spending goes first to Canadian industries. The policy applies to government contractors working on defense and construction projects, but its initial focus will be on Canadian steel and softwood lumber. Well, let the festivities begin. It is Grey Cup week in Winnipeg, and even though the Blue Bombers aren't in the big game, football fans are ready to party. Business in Winnipeg also hopes to cash in on the excitement. Colin Coop is one of the owners of Devil May Care in downtown Winnipeg, hosting a few Grey Cup festival events.
We're a bit of an unknown quantity out there, one of the smallest breweries certainly in the city and in the province. So any opportunity to show people what we do well is definitely something that I look forward to.
The province estimates hosting the Grey Cup will result in a boost of $90 million in economic activities for the province. The CFL's top prize arrived in Winnipeg yesterday, the Grey Cup coming in by military helicopter at the Forks, and the big game Sunday, Montreal and Saskatchewan. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
I wonder if you hang out at a grocery store in the watermelon section, if you'll actually see those Sask fans coming to.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
You ever put that on your head in your life? I haven't.
I've never put a watermelon on my head. No.
I don't know. You might have cheered for them. I don't know. I bet Megan Ketchison has.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
she's from Sask. She's a long-time Rough Rider fan.
Yeah.
So she'll show us how.
Yeah, exactly.
If we want to.
Do you put a protective coating on your head?
I'm guessing it's plasticized in there from Grey Cups I've covered before and seeing those melon heads.
Yeah.
You're here for traffic, Corey.
Yes. Well, actually, if you are approaching the Superstore close to the stadium, it's actually pretty slow on Bison Drive. You lose your left lane. There's some communication work going on until November 24th. So it's going to be slow going. Head on down Bison Drive towards the U of M.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Abby?
Yeah, we're looking at -8 to -1 down south here. That should clear, and then we'll see temperatures warm to +1 with temperatures dropping below zero later. Up north, flurries and -5. Winnipeg, we are at -5 heading to +1.
What kind of toque do you put on top of the? Do you put the toque on top of the melon? Do you think, or under the?
I think it's supposed to be like on top of. The melon.
Or if it's really cold, a balaclava. I don't know how you make that work.
Oh, I hope someone has a melon head and then a balaclava on top of it on Sunday. Grey Cups fans are known for, of course, coming with all the festivities and fun. So we'll see lots of different things. Also, remember the Santa Parade's on Saturday, so it's going to be an extra special one with that Grey Cup edition, and lots of festivities around town this week. Take care. Be well, Manitoba. Thanks for listening to Information Radio this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. The Current coming up next.